Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of By the Numbers, number 105. I'm your host, Richard Lewis. Joining me as he always does in his role as recurring guest is Duncan Thorin Shields. And of course, we've got Sam Davis pressing buttons, doing production and everything. I'm going to start the show with just a bit of housekeeping. That rant was brought to you by .com. Proud sponsors of this podcast. You can go to .com/RLS, go and sign up. And it's a good, safe, ethical place to go and place some bets on esports events. In fact, I just saw a story in the newspapers about a competitor, actually, of where what they were doing was they were basically getting in touch with a whale who clearly had some sort of like gambling problem. And they were going, "You'll never guess what we've got going on. You should come back. You should come back." Literally, like, luring them back. Unethical shit, guys. This is why
that's like a fucking Bill Hicks skit or something, isn't it? About like evil marketeers or something. Fucking hell. They would just contact him. All right, I know you were addicted to heroin, but you want to see this new fentanyl. It's the fucking shit.
Yeah, that's the real
Are
shit.
you kidding me?
Yeah. So, so I'm just saying this is why I partnered up with them. You won't get any of that shit going on with these guys. And of course, shout out to the patrons that brought this show back from the dead. Patrons, I think what we'll do is we'll make the audio only a patron thing. There you go. That's the compromise. That's the compromise. And fuck everybody else. People who don't pay a fucking dime towards the show wanting to be like, I want to.
You know the only thing I'm worried about that, Rich. I have just thought, right? I'm just trying to get ahead of problems before they happen. I'm already foreseeing a world where you make it for patrons, and then you're like, right, the following patrons are all banned for requesting the pod being early. It's like, no, Richard, the patrons, no. Blunt Smoky and his Destroyer, you had your last warning.
Get him out.
As well.
He's asked 2 questions and he's asked where the pod bin is. Get him out.
just trying to get ahead of that one.
Just 1 second. I'm just typing fuck off. There we go.
Well, this show started on a good note anyway. We've got the
I just honestly, like, I just think I might just sit here and just work through a list of petty grievances and not talk about fucking Counter-Strike at all. You can bring
I won't say the obvious joke there,
who fucking yeah.
It writes itself, that one, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Bring that up. Who does this? Just get out. We'll just sit here all day. Like, I don't even give a fuck. Like,
I like that part. No, I actually legitimately love that part where he goes, "I thought everything to said was hilarious and very agreeable. All right, well, in that case, unbanned."
Yeah.
Well, would that be the deciding fact? As the judge of my own case, Your Honour, I believe I'm actually innocent, so I should go free. With the keys to the city.
It's just mad. Like, it's just mad. It's just people are mad. Like, people are just too insane to just deal with like just other human beings on this planet. Like, I can't be arsed faking it anymore. I said this to Sam the other day. Like, my threshold now is like unbelievable. It's worn down to a nub. Like, I spend too much time being too nice to absolute idiots.
I can't handle it because I just clicked on that guy's Twitter, right? I'm just thinking, what sort of person posts a tweet like that? His first tweet, right, is a retweet of just Bristol Live that says, the meals she whipped up were include creamy salmon, pea and lemon pasta, fruit and veg curry, and mustard chicken with veg. Like, why are you retweeting that? What is that? That's the stuff. You're actually, listen, I don't use this lightly, but seriously, just get help. You know that like Michael Jordan thing where it's like, stop, just get help. It's like that. You've just reached the end, mate. Like, it doesn't go anywhere better after this. I'm pretty sure after this, you're just descending in full American Psycho madness at that point in time.
Oh, mate,
you're just retweeting like recipes for creamy chicken or something. What the fuck are you doing?
Like, people don't even understand. Like, I mean, first of all, this has got nothing to do with Counter-Strike either, but like, the whole, if you ever want to know that, like, just how much of a mistake social media actually is, you only have to look what happened in the aftermath of, Kobe Bryant's, tragic death, right? So, do you want to know how my Kobe Bryant day started? So, my phone is fucking literally, it's like just fucking crawling across my desk. Like, I was out, I had a few drinks the night before, got a bit of a bad head. I'm like looking over at it, like, who the fuck is this? Like, so anyway, I woke up to being told that Rick Fox had died, and obviously I know.
Oh yes, because that was that stupid thing that like TMZ or some fuckers
reported,
right? I can't remember.
You get ripped out of your fucking slumber, by that fucking bullshit, and you know, I'm scrambling, I'm calling, you know, his phone's not picking up. Like I'm getting in touch with colleagues and people we know, and verified journalists are saying this on social media. It's
By the
all
way,
over the place.
that's one thing I've got to say is crazy. Is nowadays there's the other thing about the fact that anyone can be a journalist. Because nowadays no one reads the byline. Like no one really gives a fuck who any of these people are. Even if you write for the New York Times, people probably won't know your name unless you're a big name opinion piece writer. So as a result, there's also now no accountability. Like, I mean, obviously we know in the world of like fucking games journalism, loads of them have lied a million times, provably anyway. But I mean, like big papers have people who get stuff totally wrong and just go on with their careers, and it's like doesn't even affect them. It's crazy because something like that, no joke, reporting that someone died that you had no evidence for. Because by the way, if you now know the situation, there never conceivably was a scenario that he was on that helicopter in any way. He wasn't going to that girl's fucking basketball game. You just did that just to think, well, I've got an angle no one's got. The idea that doesn't actually just end your career and all credibility, you don't have to come back with a different fucking name. It's unreal, isn't it? Like what is there to hold a journalist to any kind of accountability now?
No, but this is the wild thing. It was like the check marks that were repeating it. When you go and look at the original source, the original tweet that it emanated from, it was like a guy with like 3 followers called like something, I don't know, like Big Chungus 28 or something. It was so obviously not like a credible
a sock puppet.
Yeah,
could have been.
And they just
in this day and age.
They just blindly repeated it all. So it was like, you know, it's like, honestly, people.
By the way, you know when people use that
like,
angle, because again, I get a lot of people don't know journalism, so they might think naively, yeah, but you know, it's if you get some information, you don't have time to check it. Like, shouldn't you just go live? No, that's the whole premise. Actually, the whole premise is
job, like.
We call the people who just report it without any verification scumbags. That's why no one really respects TMZ. It doesn't matter that they all do the odd story that's legit. No one respects them because they are ambulance chasers. Like they'll just report any old shite. The point is, if you're a journalist and you can't verify it, tough shit. It's not your story then, is it? That's all being a journalist is. It's not just going, I just heard something. Here you go. You can have it. What would the point of that be? That's not even what's your journalism element?
But in an era of social media, we've all heard something. You
That's
stupid
the problem,
cunts.
isn't it?
Yeah, we hear stuff non-stop. I hear stuff every time I sit down at my PC. There's rumors flying around everywhere on every social media platform. It's your job as a journalist to sift through all of this and present the accurate account with clarity and insight. You don't just say, well, it's being reported on Twitter that we can all see the same thing. You know, you're superfluous at that point. And that's what, you know, like I say, that was just that was just an awful day all around. You know, we obviously reached out to the people over at Turner Sports because, you know, I mean, you can imagine, you know.
Yeah, think of that crew, of course.
Yeah, they're absolutely fucking devastated, and not just about Kobe, but obviously his daughter as well, which is just awful in general. And you know, I mean, like I was talking to a few of those guys. They're like, this culturally, this is a real big deal. This is like when Lennon was shot or something. You know, this is like a real
comparison.
Yeah, and then this is like a real. You know, this is going to affect a lot of people. I wanted to turn the stream on actually because, you know, what it's like when stuff like that happens. You know, people do get profoundly, you know, kind of sad. But instead, I sat there aghast for 2 hours watching what the journalists were doing, how they were reporting it. And it was just mind-blowing to me. I mean, so you had ABC erroneously say all of his daughters were on board. I mean, that is...
fuck?
Yeah. I think it was during the Pro Bowl. You know, they literally just said, "Oh, it was Kobe and all of his daughters," and the anchor that has said that.
That's crazy. You should be fired instantly for that. No
oh,
joke.
Of course, absolutely.
Because there has to be consequence. That's the point.
Yeah.
Because what people don't think about is the knock-on effect. Like, actually, to tie into what you were saying, that's one thing I thought sucked about the coverage as well, is that they almost went out of their way to try and make you depressed with how they gave you the coverage. Whereas in theory, what you would want to do is give people the news and then have someone come on who's like a leadership figure who can say like, yeah, it's a very sad day, but let's remember the good things the person did. And here's how we can all move forwards. And we're going to remember them and live up to their aspiration. You know, you'd want to do that. Like, that's, because I agree. I see what you mean by why you wanted to turn the stream on. There was no like antidote element. There was no other side to it. It was all just like piling on the misery basically and just wallowing in it.
Yeah. And not just that though. I mean, like just the amount of inaccuracies that were going out there. I mean, it was mind blowing. You know, in a 2 hour period, you had that ABC. Basically, I mean, and again, keep in mind, TMZ announced that it was Kobe's helicopter before the family had even been notified by the LA Sheriff's Department. So the family were finding out through the news. So when ABC comes out and says, "Oh, all the daughters are on board," I can't even imagine what Kobe's wife and family are going through at that point, because they're trying to figure out where everybody is, who's accounted for. You know, like friends of the family as well, maybe that don't know direct whereabouts of people. Like it was just insane that ABC just rolled that out. Like you had
that sort of level of irresponsible journalism. If it doesn't now, in the future, will get people killed.
Oh,
like there's a world in which there's people where if they heard the whole family die, they'll just go blow their head off. Like it's not even a joke. That'll happen.
No,
eventually, if you keep doing this shit.
Yeah, you had obviously the lie about Rick Fox being on board, which was, as you said, never a conceivable. You know, when you find out the particulars of the case, it was never a conceivable scenario that could.
That's how you know it was 100% fabricated, don't you? It's like if in the end there'd been some angle like you had seen him the day before and then take a flight, I'd be like, okay, maybe you got it mixed up, but it's clear to me, like we're saying, that just was 100% fake. Like, that's why I even think it might just be someone did a sock puppet account and just bloody put it out there and then, you know, like how sometimes even big news stations do, where they pull up a tweet and if you ever go and track it down, there was nobody fucking following that account. It's like, how did you find that? What, with no trending topic? Get out my face! Like that's just not even possible.
Yeah, and you know, if I remember right, you know, I think there was some ESPN journalists that were even intimating. I mean, that's how like high up the food chain it got. So you had that. Then you had obviously, I mean, like, so understand, you know, Kobe Bryant alone dying is a tragedy. Him and his daughter dying is a tragedy. Then when you learn that there's another entire family on that plane, including another teenage girl, you know, because they're going to a basketball game, you know, maybe a bit of tact and decency before we get into the weeds of breaking down Kobe's legacy and whether or not it was a problematic legacy and stuff like this.
By the way, I'll give you another angle people probably never thought of. So I'll actually tell you my real reaction when I first heard it, because I was just on my phone and it was like almost like maybe like 20 minutes after it happened, I heard some news, right? This is how sad, Richard, because of the position I'm in and what I know about journalism, my real assumption initially was it could be fake. So actually, I hope it's fake. I hope this is just TMZ or some stupid fuckers. So I actually made it worse when it then was real. I didn't even get to like actually have it happen legitimately. I had to like be put in limbo where I was like, well, I don't believe anything some of these cunts say. So I want to see official verification. I want to know it was actually him. It wasn't just his helicopter. It wasn't just one. You know, it put me in a fucked up stasis where, because I can't trust any of these fuckers, it made it like a delayed reaction hit to me.
Totally. And you know, anyway, and then on top of that, you had you know, this sort of clearly coordinated smear campaign from multiple journalists, wasn't it? Where they all posted the link to this Daily Beast article.
Where is the accountability, right? Listen, I'm absolutely not saying to fire anyone in theory. I'm just saying this is what would have happened to other people, or indeed would happen to me or Richard if we worked for a publication. If you did something like that outrageous, that'd be the end. That'd be the black mark that you would never, ever overcome. Ever.
Yeah, of course. The idea as well, I mean, remember this, we're not just talking about the man, we're talking about a grieving mother, essentially, because children died here. So maybe, I don't know, if you've got any sort of decency, if you have a soul at all, maybe hold off for a day or two. Maybe let the family process the loss of the kids before you want to start tearing down the life of the man that, you know, that also happened to pass. But they couldn't, they didn't. They saw somebody being idolized, essentially, and unfortunately what these journalists like to do these days is be iconoclastic. We all, you know, we know the particulars of the Kobe case. I'm not going to get into that on this fucking stream, but to, you know, when you go and look at it, there's a reason it didn't go to court. There's a reason it never made trial, multiple reasons, in fact, and you can have your opinions about that and you can go and read up on it like I have, but the idea that this was some sort of like,
it's not like he was found guilty in court or anything. They'll skip bail or something. They made, like, why would it be relevant?
And the labeling of him as such, again, I think is grotesquely irresponsible from journalistic sources. But again, to do that, it was literally 10 minutes after. It's just, you know, there is no empathy anymore. And social media is very, intrinsic to us getting away from that.
That's why I do that thing where I now call it like derogatory anti-social media.
No,
because
it is.
there is no social element. Like, you would never behave in any social setting in this way. You never would think of it. It even makes me anti-social when I go on there. Like, I lose all my compassion for people in some degree, you know.
Yeah. And obviously then on top of that, you had what the BBC did, where they rushed out a tribute.
That is, listen, you know the guys from Deserto recently, I don't know if you saw this, when James Banks tweeted out, like, you know, fuck the BBC, whatever, they were trying to, like, argue back. I would just say to those guys, mate, if I just put the word BBC on anything, you just will accept literally anything. You wouldn't from any other publication. Just the words BBC are a magic spell for you. Because not only have they lied about everyone except you, which is why you're cool with it. So apparently, right, are you telling me if they do a hit piece on you and lie about you and your family, you'll be cool with it? No, of course not. You'll join the rest of us. So as though there wasn't a million examples already. This one was worse than anything because the maddest detail, as I said to Red Eye, is it's not even like the two players have the same jersey number or anything. Like, that would be the only conceivable angle someone could fuck it up. Otherwise, a Google search would show you one number, 24, and the other guy, I think, wears 21 now or something. Like, there's no universe in which you could ever mix the two up, even if you didn't know basketball, like I said.
Yeah. I mean, it just it's the standards. That's what it says to me. It's the lack of standards. It's like, I'm not even going to look at the footage we're putting out. And then, you know, this isn't the first time it's happened. They've you know, in the last like 12 months, they've used incorrect footage of Boris Johnson laying wreaths at different funerals and public events and stuff. Who is responsible for presenting factual accuracy to the public? The BBC is saying it doesn't matter as long as we get something out as quick, you know, in response to an event as quickly as we can. And again, these things do matter. It does matter that when you're trying to lay out someone's legacy, there is a complete lack of consideration to everybody that's affected by that tragedy when you cannot even be bothered to review the video footage and put out somebody else's face. There's also a very unfortunate racist undercurrent with that, you know me, I won't immediately assume the worst, but, you know, would this happen if it was two white athletes? Would you look a little bit closer? It begs that question. So, I mean, I just, that day just utterly fucking depressed me, like, completely. It
was the worst of humanity, for sure.
Yeah, and all in a 2-hour window. And then, of course, you know, I'm just getting bombarded with emails. Where's the pod being? Like, guys, you read the fucking room. Like, I'm so tired of it. Like, can you not dig how this might affect people? Can you not be, you know, do I strike you as somebody that's finding everything that's going on in my life right now, like, to be, like, incredible, a great time? Like, maybe you getting your free audio version of a podcast that we put out just to be courteous on multiple platforms, maybe that's not a priority for me right now. It's unreal. It's unreal. Anyway, we can talk about some CS. I don't even know how much of that will stay in the show. Sam, what are your thoughts on that? Cut it all? Cut it to the bone?
Maybe just make it its own video.
I don't know. We don't cut a lot out, mate. All right, we just leave it in.
The Kobe rant, you can call it.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. So, there was an event, finally, Duncan. We're getting back into events, and it was DreamHack Leipzig, obviously in Germany. I was watching it with great interest because it was kind of like one of those tier 2 tournaments, but there were some interesting teams in there that have made roster changes. This was kind of the, you know, first time to see some of these new rosters, and obviously with everything that's going on in the current Counter-Strike landscape, with some of these teams suddenly going to find themselves propelled and placed into some of these leagues and get
Tell you
very...
what, that Mad Lions team is bloody brilliant. If you ask me.
No. We'll get to that in a second.
I'll never do that. You know that, guys.
Obvious. No, but actually, I mean, we'll talk about them, actually, I think, in a bit. But let's just start with the first thing that came out, you know, because, again, this is how we break down our events on this show. We pick out the big storylines. Obviously, Virtus Pro, they went out, they got a Vanguard, the older Vanguard lineup with James et al., and this was the first time they were out there, you know, at a LAN representing the new Virtus Pro brand. And it was awful. They finished fucking dead last.
I think I would describe Virtus Pro as they I would describe their team as, we buy the stock when it's high, and it's highest. Like, you bought Bitcoin when it was like 20K basically, and then you were like, I'm holding on it the whole way. It's like, it's over for you. You bought the worst time ever, didn't they?
Yeah. Oh, totally. They definitely don't know how to play the fucking stock market. But their results, they lost to Big in a best of one. I mean, that definitely could have happened anyway, regardless of the fact that Big go on then to win the tournament. They were really poor against Cloud9. I mean, the idea that this new sort of Cloud9 lineup manhandled this Virtus Pro team, where Sanji, by the way, I just want to point something out. In our fantasy league, Sam was all in on Virtus Pro and he finished dead last. What was the name of your team?
Can't even remember.
But he thought maybe mint green lips or paint eaters or something. I don't even know. Yeah. But anyway, he was all in on Virtus Pro, right? And he said, "I've nailed it, right? Look, Jame, there was like a little boost that you can get where it's like every time he saves, he's like, I fucking nailed it." And he picked Sanji as well, who got 12 frags in a best of 3 against Cloud9. They got 11 rounds on 2 maps. I mean, this wasn't even a close game. This was like embarrassing, and this was on stuff like Overpass, Dust 2.
They play all these maps.
Yeah, it was horrendous. So I don't even know where they're at right now in terms of this team and why they've sort of failed to hit the ground running. Their coach came out after this result and said something is very wrong, and it's like, well, you're part of that equation. So I don't know how much of the matches you saw, but I'll be the first to say Virtus Pro were absolutely fucking dog shit at this tournament.
No, I went and watched a bit. Like, they also were fairly underwhelming at the Epicenter tournament, and generally, like, I think in all, they've just shown, like, it's actually worse, I'd say, overall. They've regressed completely to before the major. They haven't retained any of the flair that they had at that major. So the sad thing about this result here is it's almost like this is some sort of sick torture. Like, this is some cursed monkey paw shit for fucking Dan and Jack from Cloud9. They're like, I want a new roster that's cheap. Got that for you, and it has to, of course, has to be players who are from NA. All right, yeah. One last wish, Jack, and use it wisely. Have to be able to beat someone who could play the major final. Well, nothing could go wrong here, could they? Of course, you come second to last by beating the shittest team to ever play in a major final. Like, give me a break. Like, this is just false hope you guys are getting at this point in time. Because as we're saying, this was more about how bad Virtus Pro was, not that like Cloud9 are world beaters or anything. Sadly.
No, definitely not. And there's a lot going on with this Virtus Pro team right now. Like, this roster, it is not a bad roster. This is, you said, this is still the roster that, did so well and took those big scalps. Obviously, there's a lot of caveats around it, but since they brought in Sanji, this is like the worst I've ever seen him play. I always thought he was kind of a bit of a sleeper bargain pickup. Jame had none of the statistical production anymore, but he still had the play style, which is problematic because it's like if you're gonna play to save the AWP so you've got it, then go and get the kills with the next round. But like, that wasn't happening at all here. Buster and Quicket, I mean, obviously a lot of talk about whether or not they were going to be in the team, and maybe Quicket could have joined Na'Vi. Na'Vi came out and said, yeah, we did have a long look at him, and Quicket said he wanted to stay in this team. So this might be another example of Virtus Pro like massively overpaying for kind of like mediocre talent. Adrian was probably the best thing about this team at this event.
That says it all right there. That's
he's been the guy we've been questioning whether or not he should be in the lineup. Maybe the retirement home is beckoning for him. So they were unbelievably underwhelming in a way that I've never seen them when they were a Vanguard. Even at their worst point at a Vanguard, they were not this bad. So I don't know if it's a nerves thing. I don't know what has gone on here to make them play this bad, but conceivably, this was a tournament where any of the teams in attendance, realistically, with the exception of Sprout, could have been in the final. And Virtus Pro realistically had to set themselves that goal, given their current form and position in the top 20. And they looked absolutely nowhere near it. In fact, they finished level with Sprout. So, I mean, that is a mortifying, embarrassing result, I would say.
Yeah, this is actually a good example. It's funny. I'll give props to the DreamHack Open Circuit, actually. One of the things that I do, I'm not a big fan of it because I mainly just like tier 1 CS, but one of the things I don't mind about the DreamHack Open Circuit is because it is a real circuit where it has, like, I don't know, bloody 9 events a year or something. You can really get going, and there's a lot of teams who go to most of them. And so as a result, it's not like back in the days where the problem with a tier 2 tournament is, even within that concept of it's tier 2, that was like the best teams at tier 2. And then some of them go way down to like nobody's. Nowadays, like, look at this field here. They're all pretty much the same level. Like, that's why actually this really exposed VP, because in theory, since they are realistically at the level of the teams here, there was no easy games for them. There wasn't even the pick-me-up game when you lose the first one. It's like, actually, they, even though their ranking says they should have won the tournament, they go out last place. Like, that's not even unrealistic in the current climate. So it's actually, I would say DreamHack Open Circuit is actually an argument against the oversimplification of saying the game's oversaturated. No, you just mean when there's too many tier 1 tournaments. We actually do want a grassroots element like this where these tier 2 teams could prove themselves and work their way up, as some of the other teams we're going to talk about soon have done, I'm no doubt. So I like that there is a real second circuit as well that people can play in.
Yeah. And that is definitely a real kind of phenomenon right now. Like, that was why I wanted to watch this tournament. I was actually interested. Usually, if you'd said, like, DreamHack Leipzig's rolling around, I'd be like, well, okay, I can take a holiday from getting up and watching fucking Counter-Strike on, like, EU hours. But I really wanted to see this because it was kind of wide open. And you know, we've talked about this before on the show in general, where it's like, you know, as the tier 1 teams have kind of like, you know, like no one's really touching the top 3. You go look at the tier 2 teams and it's like, that's where all the talent has been consolidated, essentially. The tier 2, anybody can beat anybody down there. It's very hard to, like, you know, get a string of accurate predictions. Meanwhile, when Astralis are playing, I don't know, a Fnatic, right, which is 2 top 5 teams going at it, you're going to go with Astralis all the time because there is this huge gulf between, you know, top 3 and kind of, you know, 4 to 10. So anyway, that was Virtus Pro. Super disappointing outing. I mean, the intimation I thought from the coach was that maybe they're going to look at a roster change here.
I think they have to, probably.
I don't know who the fuck they would drop, but based on the fact that Sanji absolutely shit the bed, you know, it would have been Adrian, would have ordinarily been the, you know, kind of choice. But this was a performance so stupefyingly bad. He's probably put his head on the chopping block at the worst possible fucking time, you know, just after the big move to a big organization.
I'll even give you an angle, mate. The worst news you could ever have if you were Sanji was some news that I think came out today, which is, I don't know if people are aware of this, but Mo, who obviously is Kazakhstani, and Dorsia, who's played with Adren, they're leaving that Chinese team because of that whole situation over there and coming back to Europe, and they say they're available. Mate, you're not from Kazakhstan. The others are all Kazakhstani and Russian. Who do you think's going to get the boot when push comes to shove? They're all turning around going, well, just Kazakhstan, isn't it? So say, yeah, it's like, yeah, peace. You can just go and join. Where's he from? Uzbekistan, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, unless him and, you know, Uzman.
Yeah, he's Uzbeki.
It's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe,
I mean, that's a weird one. Can we just talk about that while you brought it up? That fucking idea that, right, coronavirus isn't forever. Like, how have they used that as an excuse to get out and play for the Chinese team?
I don't know if I've ever told this story on this show because it was involving a Quake player, but I'll just tell you a very quick story, right? Where basically, back in the day when I used to have to go to the SK offices in Cologne because I was going to events, and sometimes I would just basically sleep on the floor of the office when no one else was there, or when sometimes in the practice room, because Mouse Sports and SK shared an office, there'd be players practicing and boot camping, but, you know, you'd just be in the other room and you just go to sleep on a mattress, right? One time, the legendary Quake player, Cooler, who played for Mouse Spots at the time, was in that practice room. And it turned out when they left, it was only me and him were in this, like, office space. And he doesn't speak super good English, but he has, like, you know, he can speak broken English, basically. Yeah. And it was one of those days where it was like I'm going to guess this is before Gamescom or something. So, from what I remember, it was sweltering. Like, Cologne could get really fucking hot. It was, and basically, I'm lying there. So what I did was, because I don't know, like, I don't even think they probably have aircon there. It's not the sort of place, you know. I just cracked the window open a bit and went to sleep. And all of a sudden, like, an hour into sleep, and I hear someone, like, rustling near me, like, and then I look up, and he's closing the window, even though it's still super hot. And I go, no, mate, like it's too hot, like I can't get to sleep. And he goes, no, germs, and then close it. And it was just such a weird thing to say, like germs. Like it's not a sci-fi novel from the fucking 60s. Like, what sort of space virus do you think is coming in from outside? Like, what the fuck are you talking? But I didn't say that, obviously. It was cool. I just went, all right, cool. And then just went to sleep in the fucking roasting sauna, didn't I? Going, oh, don't want them germs getting in. So I'd imagine, without going too crazy, they have a different conception of certain things over there, Richard.
Well, I mean, this. It seems like it's almost.
It's put this way. It's not Resident Evil more. Come on, it's just people just getting ill. Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. Like
it's like World War Z.
Everyone is treating it like the fucking T virus. Like, and the reality is, it's bad flu and it's killing people who are very old or very young.
Yeah,
like flus have a tendency to do.
Here's the problem that people don't know. This is the real detail people don't know, Richard. In the same way as you often see a famous stat cited, that some outrageous number of American US Army veterans commit suicide every month, like an insane number. And the whole point is, you'd think, how could that be? Because that's not sexy news. No one, I'm afraid, wants to see that on the news. So similarly, nobody wants to hear on the news that thousands of old people just die every time there's a flu, every fucking winter. That's not that's one of those things where, even though it's true, nobody wants to be reminded of that because there's also nothing you can fucking do about it. So it's like, let's just pretend that's not the case and focus on this cool story.
Same with heat waves.
Oh,
like
no
every time there's a heat wave, it just wipes out some poor fucking old person who's just baked inside their leathery old skin to death. Like, it just happens. Just hundreds of people just drop dead because they can't regulate their body temperature. It's just a nightmare. You know,
you shouldn't have used it. I don't know why, but just because you said baked to death, I was just thinking of like,
yeah, you're thinking of,
yeah.
I believe Baked to Death was a Snoop Dogg movie in the fucking 90s, wasn't it? But anyway,
spelled with a Q.
But like Car Wash, me and Sam actually sat through that. Recently.
Garbage, isn't it? It's like, you know what, Dr. Dre? Here's the thing, Dr. Dre.
Although Sam thought it was brilliant, I'm not gonna lie.
When you hit straight fire, when you miss, maybe take 10 years off. I can see why you do that sometimes, because you are outrageous. How dare you? How dare you?
The worst thing was, right, it got Sam because Sam enjoyed it. He thought he had an idea for a banger, so he ended up watching the Wayans Brothers Little Man.
That sounds like the worst thing already.
Right, so basically what it is, right, the premise for this movie is that one of the Wayans brothers, I don't know which one,
it's Marlon Wayans.
Is it Marlon, right? Marlon Wayans. He is a gangster who's a dwarf, and he gets out of prison.
Wait.
And he's out of prison for 5 minutes, right? And he decides to do a jewelry heist. So he gets under the jewel table and he takes out a big diamond, right? And anyway, he gets got because the dog sets off the alarm in true comedic fashion. And then he's running away from the police with his little legs. Keep in mind as well, the CGI is garbage because it's a real dwarf they've used, right? But they've just CGI'd his face on, right? It looks shit. But I'm just thinking about the dwarf. Like, he's in the movie. He's not even named. I don't even know who the cunt is. He's been fucking jacked. Anyway, he's waddling along. And then he drops the diamond in a woman's handbag, right? Who is also, like, introduced in the movie as being a career woman who doesn't want to have kids because she wants to pursue her career. Just keep that in your mind. So anyway, they follow her back to the house. And
do they pretend to be a kid?
Yes.
His
accomplice says, I know I can get you in the house. Yeah. We'll dress you up as a baby. Right? Plausible. And we'll get you in the house and then you can get the diamond out and she'll have some sort of, like, you know, bonding with you and stuff. There's this scene, mate, I shit you not, where it's a dwarf in a nappy, for starters, with Marlon Wayans' face superimposed by bad CGI over it, which is a horrifying image that has burnt into my brain. But they take it to a doctor, they take the little kid to the doctor, and they say he's got a tattoo. Right? Because he's been in prison. He's got prison tats. And the doctor's going, well, this is some terrible neglect. They're looking in his mouth going, the baby's obviously very developed for its age. He's got fucking wisdom teeth. He's going, these are the teeth of a 40-year-old man, and apparently this is all just fine. This is all just, mate, the movie was absolute hot garbage. I couldn't believe what I was watching. Sam, of course, blazed out his mind, loving every second of it. We didn't finish it. We didn't finish it, but anyway, Little Man. I don't know what
the thing. I'll give you what. If you like, just even premises that you can't even believe how bad they are. I've got a movie. Again, one that you wouldn't believe could be made, right? And all you've got to do is don't watch the movie. Just watch the trailer on IMDb or YouTube or whatever. It's a movie called Tiptoes. And it's something similar, basically, where someone plays a dwarf. But what's mental is this movie has fucking... I think that's the movie I'm thinking of. Basically, if it's the right one, then basically Gary Oldman's in it, even though again it's some outrageously stupid movie that something like that. You have to look it up. Gary Oldman's in the movie anyway. Find out the one I'm talking about. Whoever
all right, I'll check it out. I also missed out. I also missed out. There's this one scene where when they change Little Man's nappy, when they change Marlon Wayans' nappy, there's a scene where everyone is hypnotized by his giant adult penis. And they're all. This scene is problematic for just a variety of reasons, but all the family are just round staring at what they think is a child with a giant. It's crazy film, mate.
Oh, and by the way,
I don't know if that sells it to you.
I've even just looked it up. It is the right one. I'll put it there for you for later. But here's the thing: they even have the gall in this trailer to say. And Gary Oldman in the role of a lifetime. They actually.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
Gary Oldman, one of the best.
It was
supporting actors, character actors of all time.
But they say it as though it was a fast show skit or something in the role of a lifetime. As though that's what they say on every fucking video, no matter what. Give me a break.
Yeah, I'll check that out because me and Sam do need to watch.
I've got an idea for a movie. It's
idea for a film. Why is this podcast called Partridge now? Why is that?
It's a movie
idea for a show.
It's a movie called Band, and it's just the story of this guy who really loves recipes, creamy pies and stuff. And then one day he has the gall to ask his favorite esports personality where all the podcasts are on Podbean. And he gets banned, even though what he said was actually funny and acceptable. And then it's his quest to get unbanned, including writing emails, starting GoFundMe, petition.org.
That's good.
Starring Gary Oldman in the role of...
I've just got to get him blocked on Twitter. Once he sees me, he'll let me back in the fold. Right, anyway. So what the fuck were we talking about?
Back to CS.
Yeah, back to CS, I guess. North. They were here. They fucked me up in my fantasy picks because I said they were going to win the whole tournament. I had such faith in MSL coming back. I believed that North were going to win the whole thing. And they were looking good. They started with a 16-4 over Sprout. That Sprout with Oscar, we're not even going to talk about them because, they still got Spiddy and that. And then they come up against Mad Lions in a best of one. It's this legendary Hunden. He's back from the dead. He's back. He's got a team. It's all working. But this is North with MSL, the old sea salty dog pirate captain that knows how to beat everybody. It's fine. It's going to be fine for North. Well, Mad Lions straight wrecked them. They absolutely bodied them. And they bodied them with Hunden barely scraping over 10 frags. It was I have said this. I told Sam that he wanted to put Bubsky in because he's sick. I always thought he was one of the Danish players that kind of was flying under the radar for a while. You can even go back to I think it's episode 18 or 20 or whatever when he was in Dignitas, and I think it was when we were talking about this guy. I think he's a good talent, and he's been fragging out for Mad Lions, instrumental in their success. But anyway, I still think in general North shouldn't be losing to them, but it's a best of one, and it's a Danish derby. We all know anything can happen now. Unfortunately for them in the next round, North got heroic, but they came out, all guns blazing. They had a very comfortable 16-10 on Nuke, gave up a few rounds after giving up a big lead, but that's the nature of the map. They were 12-3 up at halftime. You know how it is, CT&T on Nuke. That's a strong scoreline. Then they go into Overpass. They start out pretty good. They have a great T half on Overpass North. You're they're going to close this out pretty easily. And then old school MSL North came in. The complete collapse, like just Jenga. You're just watching it happen. Heroic get in, get to OT, win in OT, and then 16-2 on fucking Train, mate. Heroic absolutely abused them. They absolutely manhandled them. And you could just see MSL and all of the guys on that team had got into that space that is so typical in North, where they were just like, yeah, fuck this. Like, they were completely out. You know, the best performer in that series, like, I'll just say this. I hate to keep doing it, but what is Cajun doing for this team right now? I mean, that's the first question I got to ask. Like, what is he doing there? Because I just don't think he's good anymore. I just don't think he's tier 1 caliber.
Well, the big problem is, ever since he left Cloud9, basically, he has had his problems. Like, I don't know where he's at in his career, where he's at in his head, but it's starting to look bad. And you have to remember, the big problem he has that other players don't have is, I just checked it now, he is now 30 years old. You basically have to do the other way around. You have to make people like, wow, well, you're pretty good for a 30-year-old. Not like, wow, you're bad and you're 30 years. Like, that's the killer if you say that, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Especially because you now live in a world where on the Mad Lions side of the equation, they've got all these bevy of young stars that are coming up. Like, you have to at least beat them with your experience. If they're already beating you now, it's looking bad for the next year or two, mate.
I was saying this even... You know, but like, this is a guy who's like, he's made a stellar contribution to some really solid teams in the past. You know, going all the way back to Source. Where, you know, always played as like he's a capable AWPer, a capable rifler. He's one of those hybrid players. You know, great aim, very good teammate to play alongside with, but he just hasn't been getting things done to the same standard he used to. He's in a bit of a malaise, and the idea that he's good enough to play on a tier 1 team, I think it's a laughable premise, frankly, at the moment, and the numbers definitely bear that out. Now, when you consider North have a ton of problems still, they don't just fix them all because MSL comes back. We all said it's a step in the right direction. You got this issue with, you know, AZ. You never know what's going to happen there. Kiebi still isn't quite getting the you know, frequency of star player performances. I'm hoping MSL is going to be able to do something about that. You know, Gade had like probably some of the best maps I've seen him have, you know, since he's been at North. But again, that sort of tells its own story, right? That Gade is not a guy that should be your go-to player with a roster of names like that. When you've got a Kiebi, an AZ, a Cajun B, all being puppeteered by MSL. 2 years ago, this is like a who's who of Danish Counter-Strike. These are basically players, you know, in Kiebi's case, people who've played in the Astralis lineups and back when they weren't Astralis. This is the top tier of Danish Counter-Strike and therefore by extension World Counter-Strike. But they absolutely capitulated against the team that is inarguably weaker with a weaker in-game leader. And even the players you would look to for good performances within Heroic weren't even that great. I mean, Snappy was fragging out. I mean, it was just, and remember, he's not even the in-game leader anymore. Cadian is. So it was a really bad loss. That's 16-2.
Is that true that Cadian's the in-game leader? I was under the impression it was Snappy still.
No, I think Cadian's the IGL now, right? I mean, he sits in the middle. He's shouting and screaming.
Oh,
is it still Snappy?
I'll try asking. I'll get the information back.
To be honest, I thought Cadian was the IGL, but I could be wrong. If that's wrong, I fully correct myself.
I was under the impression it was Snappy anyway. But
people in the chat are saying it's Snappy. Some are saying it's both. Some are saying it's Cadian.
That could also be true. I could also believe Cadian does the second.
But okay, well, all right. That's even more astounding then. If Snappy is the in-game leader still, like the performances he had, he looked like old school Heroic.
It is the first LAN for the North lineup, whereas I will say Heroic has had that lineup for, I'm going to guess, like 4 or 5 months now. And the key thing was they were active. They were at the DreamHacks towards the end of the year. They were at Epicenter. Now they're at this event. So I will say there's a mismatch there in terms of active form. And obviously MSL wasn't in the team. It's just that, first of all, people do expect you to turn it around because you are supposed to be the savior if you're MSL. And then bigger than that, the team was so underwhelming the last few months that even though it's not MSL's fault, people have sort of run out of time. No one has the time of day for North now. And then you throw in that mismanaged, bungled rebrand. It's like at this point in time, the joke would be, just do another fucking rebrand. Just do one now, start it now.
Yes, yeah, and now, yeah, I think what they need to do, is like I say, I think they need to go out. We know there's a plethora of like Danish talent out there, and you look at like what Mad Lions have been able to do, for example, with names that people probably aren't too excited about. No one's really excited about Bubsky or Acor. These guys are getting shit done. They're looking great. They're looking better than the players on the North roster right now, especially Cage and B.
Yeah, but I've got an angle that you're not going to like on this one.
Okay,
which
go on.
is that would be right in the old way that Counter-Strike was hierarchically structured. But here's the problem. You could have done that. You're absolutely right, Richard. If this same lineup was 2 months ago and it was tricked, yeah, I'm with you. Just go get some of those players. It's Mad Lions now. It's owned by Splice. Like, they have literally no reason to have to sell to North. Like, even money, they don't necessarily have to sell, not least because who knows? Maybe there's a world there in the so-called B-Site League, in which case you don't want to sell talent, actually, because you'd have to buy it yourself. So then you look elsewhere. Look at the amount of, like, remember the whole thing, if you're MSL, that you used to complain about, but was actually your one upside is, well, I get everyone not an Astralis, right? Bullshit. Valde, Carrigan, fucking Blame F, like the talent, Config, the names you'd want, who, except for the Mad Lions players, aren't even available. They're not even in fucking Denmark, most of them. And then, as you're saying, suddenly Hunden has probably done seemingly his best scouting job ever and gotten all these guys now. And right at the time when they're getting good, which is partly in last year, and then now, even he's got an org that's got the backing where he doesn't ever have to sell. So I feel like if you're North, you'd have to pay through the nose for this.
Yeah, I mean, quite possibly, but North are going to have to do something. You can't draw a line. You can't draw a line in the sand and say, new fresh start. We've deleted all of our old shit. We brought MSL back. We've got new staff coming in, new coaches, new managers, new ideas, and you're going to turn up the same lackluster performances and lackluster results. These things do not chime well with the fans. Remember, in Danish Counter-Strike, first of all, Danish esports in general, not a huge fucking market. And there's not a huge fucking country. What is it, like 6 million people or something? So you are competing for very limited, kind of like floating voters, if you want. Obviously, everyone's all in on Astralis because everyone's glory supporting cunts. Everyone wants to belong to the winning team. That's just the human mindset, right? But there are people who would be willing, like, we could be a North fan, good brand. Just get me a few results. Just go to an event and just win, or have a deep run, or have some cool merch, or just something. Just stand out, do some cool content. Well, right now you're not doing any of that, and your team looks on this showing exactly the same problematic team it was, whether MSL was there or not. So the one thing I'll say is he obviously didn't have a lot of time to prep and make some alterations, but this, getting Yugi out, that was step one. Getting MSL back, that's step two. Cajun, maybe AZ or Gade or someone else, like, you've got to make some big moves and show that you are committed to a new vision and a new direction. Because right now, North is synonymous with mediocrity and has been for a long time. And Hunden, meanwhile, over at Mad Lions, I guess we may as well segue into talking about them. He's showing that actually, with a little bit of scouting and a little bit of due diligence and a little bit of care, you can actually resurrect an entire career. You can legit come back from the dead. Because let's be real, what was this? Wasn't this like Hunden's first top tier event? And that's obviously generous calling it, but by contrast to the ones he was doing in years, in about 3 years or something. It's mental. How he was out, he was gone, he was nowhere in the scene. And he's come back and been able to go out there, pick up some Danish talent, get a system that works, and now they're very competitive. They're actually a fun team to watch. I know you joked about that earlier. I actually like watching this Mad Lions
No, but
team.
I implied they were really good. They're just a team with potential that you keep your eye on. They're a sleeper, put it out way. They could get really good in the next few months if everything goes to plan.
Yeah. I honestly like watching these guys, and just to talk about how they did here, had very good results, against the caliber of opposition you would expect them to lose to. Obviously beat North. That's the big scalp right there. They weren't able to beat Renegades in the next round, but they took a map. They looked very solid on train. It was, these weren't blowouts with the exception of Nuke, which seems to be something that they're kind of up and down on. But in general, I thought Mad Lions had a great showing. They beat North, took them out of Renegades. Like, this is they beat Heroic. This is a team that people have to take, seriously, especially down in that tier 2 thing. They'll do a number on you.
No, the thing with this team is, like, normally, if you're lucky, you find one guy that has legit potential. Like, actually, in past teams, they've had a few players like that, and then that player goes on to be in an MSL team or go up to a better squad, etc. Somehow, Hunden's found 3. And the thing is, it's not like he found them nowhere. They were in, like, Fragsters and the old and like that shit Copenhagen with Flames. It's just that at the time, that's what a scout's eye is about. He could somehow see when they to us were nothing, that what they're now doing was in them. And also, I will say, he's such a veteran IGL. I've no doubt his system that he puts them in and figuring out people's roles. That's why I always say that's one of the most important things your IGL can do. It's what you hope MSL will do for North. You put people in the right spots they might not even volunteer to go into. You just say, this is the right thing for you right now. Trust me. And when you do that, I mean, this guy's worked magic over and over and over again. If people don't know, the only reason 100 was never able to be at this level, which is a reasonable level for him, is because he would always get his talent immediately snatched. Like, as I say, back in the day, he didn't even have backing of an org. So instantly they were gone for the transfer, because why wouldn't you? I mean, I know other teams in lesser regions are going to think this is a crazy concept, but you're supposed to want to sell when they give you lots of money. That was the premise of the buyout. If your buyout is so high that you're never going to sell them, you're just keeping players in, like, indentured servitude or something. Like, you're not actually running a business. But there is one issue I have to say. Like, it's not even that bad that they didn't win this event, because, again, a whole bunch of your players are essentially not super veteran players. They're not super experienced like some of the players that were also at this tournament. So it's fair enough that they can have up and down games. The big problem is, and this is the sad part, if this was a Disney movie, obviously this would be like the fucking, I don't know, I guess it's not a Disney movie, but in the wrestler, he gets to sort of, like, still be able to have a career and he's still, like, cool and stuff. There's not even going to be that chapter for Hunden, because unfortunately, as much as everything outside the server he does is brilliant, as much as an IGL, he seems really competent. As an individual player, when he has to put a crosshair on, so he's not just bad, because many IGLs are low fraggers. Yeah. He's literally, like, might be the worst player I've ever seen play at this level, just individually.
I mean,
he's really bad.
Yeah, he is. I'd like to see an aim map between him and Zeus. I'd like to see a 1v1 aim map with him and Zeus.
Zeus would tear that ass up. Zeus, he'd make Zeus.
I'd have a piece of that action. We should make this happen. We should make this happen, mate. We should.
No, because here's the thing: there's no universe. I'm betting on Zeus to win a match at this point in his career. Probably just throw it like. Read my next book. I did not write. What do I throw game against Thorin? Like, exactly. That never happened.
Yeah, but I know what you're saying. He is, not a great player. And this is where we get to the stage where it's like, how high can you go with that kind of drag factor?
You clearly get to this level, sure, but the problem is, soon as you go to the top level, I mean, there's just nothing you can do at that point in time. Like, the whole point is, as much as we like, listen, Counter-Strike, the reason in Counter-Strike you tell every new fan, listen, it's not just about the headshots, it's about tactics and it's about your role, is because it's taken for granted that anyone playing at the pro level has good skills. The idea is your minimum threshold you have to hit. He doesn't hit that. So the problem is, it doesn't matter how good his tactics, etc. are. At some point in time, it almost becomes unfair to the star players that they have to do twice as well to carry you. Crazy concepts. Yeah. Can you maybe think about what that would make? In case you're listening.
Funny. I'll go off on another tangent.
Here's an idea for a movie. Right, legendary player, not Zeus. We'll make it different so no one fucking gets all butthurt in an imaginary scenario. So a legendary player in a game like Counter-Strike, let's call it Counter Force, right? He's a bit of a cunt at the end of his career. And the thing is, what he wants to get all the English crowd, because he's, I don't know, we'll just make a use from Timbuktu with this story, right? So he wants the English crowd. So he has someone who translates all his tweets for him. And then what happens is, tragically, either he just retires and disappears one day without announcing it, or he dies, whichever you want in the story. And what happens is, the guy who's running his Twitter, called the clammiest cunt, just decides, I could keep it going for the fans. And for the next 2 years, or sort of like some Andy Kaufman, whatever that fucking guy was, that character he played, that club singer. He just basically keeps his legacy going for a few years and no one notices because the player was shit anyway at the game. So a little cunt standing in doesn't even change the difference.
Good idea for a Twilight Zone episode, Duncan.
Starring Gary Oldman
Twilight.
in the role of a lifetime.
In the role of a lifetime. Yeah, I mean, listen, while we're on that topic, right, I actually had Zeus's team reach out to me because his book is being translated into English.
And does he want you to review it?
Yes. Yes.
Here's one thing I'll say about him. One thing I'll give him props for. He is absolutely shameless. When people normally say that, you don't
it didn't come from him. It came from Zeus. Me and Zeus have never interacted since that one time, that interview. We never talked to each other again.
He wouldn't mind. He'd just go, "Is the money good? Sell this fucking pig this book." Like, he doesn't give a fuck. Like, normally when people say you're shameless, you actually don't mean that. What you mean is you're trying to shame them. You're trying to be like, have a little self-respect. He really is shameless. He doesn't give a fuck.
So I'm getting it's all official. It's all above board. I'm getting.
I'd love this. I would actually love this if you get his book. And in some biographies, they'll put like an index at the back where you can search words. I'd love it if you flick back there and it just says Richard Day Lewis, and it has about 10 different page things, like page 13, page 29, page 52.
I might be in it.
That would just buckle you so much, wouldn't it?
Oh, I'd love it. But yeah, so what they're doing is as well, he's apparently very insistent that he wants me to have like a hard copy of the book. He doesn't just want me to review it digitally. He wants me to have an actual hard copy. So they're giving me a code so I can order the hard copies. It's going to be available on Amazon and get an actual physical copy of Zeus's book in English in my hands. So I am gonna as good as my word, because
wipe your ass with it.
No.
Just eat a massive Vindaloo, drink loads
Send
of
it back and keep the money.
No,
and then just start tearing pages off.
I'm gonna review it. And I'm gonna do a little review video and give it a mark out of 10. And I will review it.
I predict it's going to get 5.5 out of 10. That's my prediction.
I will review it honestly, without bias or prejudice. It would be hugely
minimum
unethical.
81% review here at Richard Lewis Enterprises, sponsored by Zeus's new book coming out soon in middle stores.
So I'm gonna do that. I think and listen, it might who knows? It might be.
There's probably some banner in there.
It's not like he wrote it, so it might be fucking great.
There's probably someone who has talent, made up a bunch of good stories, probably made him seem cool, like a hero or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Putting a bunch of fake stories about him, like, going and helping out kids who've got cancer and stuff. He's a good guy.
Yeah. So who knows? So that's going to be good content. Anyway, back to DreamHack Leipzig. Let's talk about Cloud9. I think we're going to have a disagreement, Duncan. I think it's the rare moment.
Here we go. You're going to hype them and say they're actually good.
No, I'm not going to go that far. But what I am going to say is, I think, in contrast to where I thought they were going to be when they were picked up, based on their online performances and how they played here at DreamHack Leipzig, I'm going to say I think they've passed the early tests. My expectation, I don't know if it's a case of my expectations were so low, right, that I think, they're better than they are. I've mind fucked myself, but I don't. While I think this is sort of it could still very well go down as one of the worst pickups in Cloud9 history and one of the worst rosters Cloud9 has ever assembled, I will say they've done better than I thought they would do. And I think had the draw gone a little bit differently, if some of the results just, kind of rejigged around, I think Cloud9 could have, maybe if they could have avoided Renegades, got another team. I know coulda, woulda, shoulda, but I do not think they're as bad as we think they are, Duncan.
Mate, they did get 2-0'd by Renegades convincingly.
Yeah.
Who thought Renegade? Put it this way: if Cloud9 had picked up Renegades, I'd be like, "What the fuck are you doing getting Renegades? They just lost to that team. What early test did they pass? Being alive and having a jersey on. You're right.
No. Remember, I'm including the online results. Okay. I'm including online results as well.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, they did have some online results.
They have some onliners. I agree.
No, some online results. don't do the Reddit.
All right, remove the agree. They just have some onliners. That's my opinion. There you go.
No, but I think they definitely had some good results in terms of some of the qualifiers that they've already attended as a team. They beat MIBR. Let's not forget in the Katowice qualifiers. Me and Sam watched that, together, and it was like we were really surprised. In that qualifier, they beat out INTZ, they beat out Complexity, they beat MIBR. To qualify for Leipzig, they had to beat Complexity again. They had to beat E United. Remember, we were saying we're quietly, excited about Complexity. Well, I said that. I think you nodded in agreement.
I think eventually, yeah.
So you look at the results, and remember, they beat Avangar, now Virtus Pro 2-0, a team that, remember, we're in the final of a major. We all the caveats.
Can I win the next major?
So I know, but look, I'm just saying within a broader context, like Renegades definitely seem to have their measure. But if we were talking about this Cloud9 team when they first got picked up, I wouldn't have said they would have beat MIBR in a best of 5, Duncan.
Online means nothing to me. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. It never will. Listen, online to this day, Xantara is one of the best players to ever play CS. Literally, objectively, by all metrics and statistics, one of the best to ever play. Even against Tier 1, he's godlike. So all I'll say is this. Call me fucking George St. Pierre because I am not impressed with your performance. I don't give a fuck. So there we go. Throwback right there.
Not bad. I thought you were going to call me George St. Pierre because I'm juiced to the gills.
No, that's just a rumour. Just a rumour. Flusher. Sorry, George St. Pierre.
But yeah, so you're not impressed, I take it.
I think they're okay. Here's the thing. It's like I said, the weird thing about it is when I actually studied them to make my video about the roster move, I did find aspects of the team I liked. Like some of the players do have some potential. And actually, I told you they do real strats and stuff. Any team that does that, they'll always have at least a little charm for me. The idea that you try to play real Counter-Strike is good because so many teams in the modern day do think you just stack so-called aimers and just scrim, etc. So if you're from NA and you just run real tactics, I'll already give you a little bit of a nod. It's just I don't think they have the caliber within the roster to actually be. Put it aside, I don't think they'll be a top 10 team.
Okay,
I'll just say that right now. So,
but has the needle moved for you at least? Because the Thorin scale of over here is dog shit, and then it goes all the way of the spectrum
they had to at least
straight fire.
They had to at least make top 4 to start to begrudgingly win my respect. For now, no respect. Maintaining that standard, no respect.
Right. So let's quickly start wrapping this up. We got to talk about Renegades. Obviously, made the final.
I wonder what was holding them back all these years.
I said this, mate. I said it on the last episode. I think it's really nice of them that they let Dick Stacey go out with a fake injury, essentially.
They're one of the only groups of celebrities that actually improved their careers by just whipping their dick out in public.
I know who knew.
That's actually good, Dick Stacey. I used an actual good, funny penis joke.
He's going to get... Remember, he's still young. He's only like 21, 22.
Also, by the way, can I just say...
He's still writing his material.
Nowadays, there's a bunch of whack people online who try to do like the worst fucking I'll get some free karma or whatever by doing some whack like CS-related jokes. I saw loads of people trying to awkwardly work in the angle of I guess we can say that... Renegades got circumcised. I don't think you know what circumcision is, mate. You're thinking castration.
I saw that.
You don't just go in well, I'm getting my son circumcised, chop the whole fucking thing off with an axe.
Bring him in the meat cleaver.
I know. Yeah. What are you thinking?
No, I did see that. I did see that.
There's too many people forcing that angle. That doesn't even work. That's horrific.
Yeah, if his name was Foreskin, Stacey.
There you go.
But it wasn't. He's not called that. Is he? He's
throwing Foreskin.
I don't think I've ever seen a player with the name Foreskin before. So the whole bit's ruined.
Someone get on it.
Yeah, just saying. Maybe Dick Stacey could rebrand. I mean, I know plenty of people have thrown foreskins, but that's not the same thing. I'll work on that joke. There's something there.
And then Smiths will just go, "It is not true. I have never thrown a foreskin. I would never do it." Bit of an old school Easter egg for you who were around back then.
Yeah. All you new cunts, go digging in the crates. But let's talk about his replacement. Let's talk about Dick Stacey's replacement. Hats came in. And I had him because my team was called the Dick Stacey Tribute Band, so I had him in my fantasy. So I was watching, reasonable behavior, never letting it go, never letting it go. He motherfucker's retired and is blind, and I'm still like he's literally there with the Ray Charles specs on. Like I can't play CS anymore, and I'm going. He's faking it. He's full of shit. His dick jokes are terrible. Go Renegades without. Yeah, it's pathetic.
It's like he's just like, well, surely now that I don't even play or in any way participate in the pro scene, I'll finally be removed from the criticism and unnecessary borderline bullying. Never. And then it's like, now you just don't even have a platform to fire back. Fuck
yeah, it's exactly. You know, what I will do is I will just keep going until it hits the point where all of the criticism becomes correct by the fact that I never shut up about it, and enough time went past to all the stars aligned, so it was accurate the whole time. But I did watch the team. Listen, I think these guys, there's definitely, like you said, there's definitely something there now that they have 5 complete players. And I thought Hats, for a first outing, I mean, he's clearly an upgrade from Dick Stacey. That was very clear, just from watching it. But it also seemed to free up some of the other players to perform well. There was a couple of poor performances. I mean, most notably in the final, where I was very surprised.
I thought we were going to win the final, to be fair.
Yeah, no, it's same. I was very surprised how easily Big were able to dispatch them. I don't know what happened between rounds. I don't know if they were exhausted or, just tired, whatever it was. But the Mirage performance in particular was very, very surprising. And, it was in the final really where, kind of Hats went a little bit missing. Malta obviously went a little bit missing. But still that core 3 of like INS and Dexter, and I don't know why they're calling them Sicko. Surely the whole point is that it's Psycho, but spelt in a clever way.
You think so, wouldn't you?
Not Sicko, because you could just put the K in there and it's fine. It's clearly meant to be anyway, whatever. I'll have to ask him. I'll have to ask Simon. But honestly, they really struggled against Big in the final, and that was a big surprise to me because I thought in general they looked like the best team at the tournament up until that point. So it sort of begs the question.
Could maybe have been a bit of nerves, though. I mean, I know this isn't a big tournament, but for them to be in a finals, not a regular occurrence. They're usually in big tournaments at like 13th place. So if you've never played finals before, it's a new level no matter who you are, even if you think you're the better team. Because I'd agree, right up to the final, it looked straight fire. Like they looked like, wait a minute, is this team just going to jump a whole fucking tier now? Dick Stacey's not dragging them down. Like they actually looked like that. Like as far as I'm concerned, I can't remember who actually won the official MVP. I'd have to look it up. But like Dexter looked like he was a lock to win it by the time we got to that final. He looked legit like, mate.
It was Tabson.
There we go. I can see why he was in the winning team. Mate, Dexter looks like he will be in 100 Thieves within like a year and a half.
Oh, I mean, I think people have been talking about Dexter.
If not an NA team,
Yeah, I mean, this is the key. I think Dexter, everyone's been talking about Dexter for a while. But remember they've still got like INS is a really, really good player as well, and Psycho's moment. Like Malta, I was very surprised that he was kind of so poor in the final. We knew for a while.
Country. I don't know if you.
Yeah, I know. What does he know that Malta's a country? For me, I think this kind of underlined a little bit of what we always knew, that there was potential in that Greyhound team. They had too many big scalps for it not to be the case.
Oh, of course, yeah.
The reality was, yes, everything was going their way when they beat like an EG on day one, or a Team Liquid that like has lost their fucking bags at the airport and stuff like this. Like when you get the big guys, on their worst day, you've still got to beat them. When all things are said and done, you still have to sit on the server and beat them. And very often, a lot of teams still can't do it, still can't beat the big boys on the worst day. The Greyhound lineup always knew how to capitalize when things weren't perfect. And basically what was holding them back when it came to like actually playing on the day 2s and day 3s of the tournament when everyone settled was they had fucking dead weight. They had one player who literally couldn't do anything. And somehow would become the talismanic player despite being absolutely awful. So now that they've removed that as a component, and Hats is well thought of in the Australian scene as being somebody that is going to have a lot of potential and is going to, live up to something reputationally, then who knows? I mean, I'm going to keep an eye on Renegades based on what they do in the next tournament, because I am willing to concede the idea of Greyhound winning a DreamHack Leipzig, essentially, you know, they haven't fully merged into being renegades yet culturally. Probably still hasn't settled into their minds. There probably was a bit of nerves going into this. You had the home crowd. I mean, not that there was much of one. It was embarrassing watching the crowd shots for DreamHack Leipzig, honestly. There was about like 20. I've had more people at a fucking house party. It was like 20 people there. But still, when you factor all that in, yeah, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on this one. I thought this was a very good tournament for them. Looking forward to see what they do next.
Oh, by the way, I also agree with that angle. Like, that's actually the one downside is in terms of parity, the event was pretty good for a tier 2 event. I agree. There was no spectacle to it, sadly. Like, mate, I know why they hold in locations like Leipzig. I mean, mate, we have to hold massive tournaments in Katowice and Brazil and stuff. Like, the economics of the scene aren't great, but that's not really a prime location in Germany to have a fucking event. By the way, I will say as a side note, I love the way Vince did a tweet, which I guarantee if you were to search this phrase, you will find so many people unconnected and unrelated in esports history who were British say this Twitter. Everyone knows what I'm going to come with here. Where he just said, basically, he said, like, using the train, it's something like the trains in Germany are not as efficient as I thought. It's like, yeah, that's a fucking meme, mate. It really is. Like, that thing of like German efficiency. It's like, no. That's just not real. As soon as you get there,
it hasn't been for a long time. Yeah, I saw him because didn't he get wrecked with travel again? Because he won't fly. He's turned into the Dennis Burkamp of Counter-Strike or something.
No, he's the fucking bad luck Brian of Counter-Strike. I'm actually friends with the guy. I don't just have to understand where I am.
It hurts his feelings every time you wreck him, Duncan. It does hurt his feelings. It does. I don't know if you remember. He said, like, I just don't know why Thorin has to wreck me all the time. I do nothing but love him. You are awful, Duncan. You are awful.
Yeah, well, you have to understand. I'm that man.
I saw on Reddit that
don't play by the rules.
They were saying, like, it's obvious from by the numbers that Thorin hates Vince. I was like, what the fuck are you on about? Like,
yeah, go on then. I was going to do this a little bit later, but there was a Reddit thread.
I saw this
called "Vince Deserves Better."
First of all, already sounds amazing. This fucking tweet.
Oh, it was a banger, mate. It was a banger.
I do love it though, where people tell me my own opinion, and then they use that mad logic, which is like, well, it seems to us that you do. It's like, well, just double down then. Just say that reality should conform to your will, not. And say, hey, at this point in time, I'm just going to lose it one day and just be like, right, you win. I'll just change my brain. Yep, you're right. I hate him. Anything else you guys want? Unreasonable, isn't it? Like, I've never said anything that would even suggest us. In fact, I'm pretty sure anytime we actually talked about him as a commentator, I have always said what I actually said in that thread, which is I actually think it's just missteps in his career that stopped it. In my opinion, in terms of talent, he is tier 1. He should have been with the Moses, some big name, Semler, someone who's come back. He should have been a duo, one of them already by now, in my opinion.
Yeah,
he just zigged when he should have zagged.
Yeah,
and also did. Listen, we're not going to go into it, but he did sort of not say, but did he not say, I'm not retiring? And I was just like, I lost count. Are you retired? No, I never fucking. So let's not go into it because we know where that goes. It's not good for anyone. It's bad news for everyone. But all I'm saying is,
I'm trying, Vince, mate. I hope you're seeing this. I hope you see where it comes from.
And there was that time he didn't eat that shoe.
That mind you, that actually. That is the land of broken promises right there. That is some.
You should bring that series back, land
I might do it. Just do a special on Vince. Let me tell you though, I realised I've got one of them. You know, there was a guy called Social Communist in my chat. I haven't seen him for a while now. I'm hoping he's all right. He's called Social Communist. There was a 0 in the Communist, I think. And I told him he could have one of my E-League jackets from back in the day because he just asked about it, and I said I got a ton of them. So like, you know, fuck it, you can have it. And this was like a year ago. And then he sent me his address, and I thought, fucking hell, I've got to go to the post office in America. Have you been to an American post office?
Oh, that's a joke.
Oh, it's the most miserable servile experience you can ever get in there. No one's having, like, in the queues. And I just thought, like, I'm going to do that when I'm at rock bottom. Maybe when I'm homeless and I don't have anything else going on, that's when I'm going to do it. So I just haven't sent it to him. But, you know, if I had an assistant, just saying, I'd get the assistant to send it. But, yeah, but I did, I guess I broke a promise there.
If he can travel to your house now, he gets the jacket, and that's his pay for the first month of being your assistant.
Yeah. So I'm just saying.
We've been watching Curb Your Enthusiasm, and all of a sudden, Richard's on this edit. I need someone. It's like, well, if you had 400 mil in the bank, mate, you could live like Larry David.
Well, and someone should pay me 400 mil in esports. Fix it. Whatever I'm attached to. Whatever I'm attached to.
And also, anytime anything awkward happens, just go and just do that every time. That's the scene,
I just want Sam following me around doing that, playing a trombone or something. Anyway, Vince deserves better. Playing the rusty trombone. I knew you were going to go there as well immediately. Like, don't Google that, kids. Don't Google that, whatever you do.
Don't look on Google image search.
So this was by Wired41. I've been following Vince's career for a while, and it's sad to see him not be in a better position. He's doing a dream.
Oh, give him a break.
Like, fucking hell, he could be Seaside. What are you talking about? Love you, Seaside.
Why
in the chat, of course.
This podcast is proof that shit rolls downhill.
Yeah, unbelievably.
Scumbag.
Anyway, I met with him at Leipzig while he was getting food. I can't.
He's going like, excuse me, Vince. And I see you eating that chicken leg there, but I actually think you deserve better.
The idea
sound, yeah.
Like, oh my god!
You can just mind me though. I'm just having my dinner and that.
Mate, I honestly, when I first read this, I thought it was going to be like that copy pasta. Like I saw him in like the shop, and, whatever. Anyway. And spoke to, and then he goes, I met with him at Leipzig while he was getting food and spoke to him about it. Like, obviously meaning his position,
eating
not
food,
the food. Yeah, no, yeah.
How was food?
Is that delicious?
You're probably going to burn that for calories in that to keep your body going. I'll do that as well. We should sit together and be mates.
I too am a bio robot.
I eat foods. Yeah.
He would be the first to admit he hasn't helped himself with health. In his own words, that is nearly completely fixed. That is true. Vince is down 50 pounds. He's looking good, feeling healthy. From following his Twitter, it seems he's not involved in any of the leagues. And even at DreamHack Opens, this is the mental part, he's relegated to casting the lower tier games with lower tier casters. His last two being Dust and Pimp. Now listen, right?
If he actually said that, we've just caught Vince out, haven't we? It turns out when he's around,
no, Vince obviously didn't say this.
Maybe he's just gone Game of Thrones. Maybe the true
is the
Vince
Wired 41.
Maybe he goes, listen, kid, you seem cool. You eat food and that. Just let me let you know something. That
this is what I mean. This all ties in.
I have to cast with that little rat.
Once
sorry,
again,
just right, mate. Chicken, mate.
Once again, see, Duncan, I've managed to holistically tie the show together with a theme.
Come on.
Because the theme is all about like people really being devoid of empathy and not understanding that, okay, he thinks he's empathizing with Vince and going, Vince is in a terrible position and I really want to help Vince out by making this thread and hopefully we can get Vince into a better place. There is absolutely no need to fucking imply Dust is on Pimp a low tier casters, low tier talent. There's absolutely no need to even bring that into the equation.
No, but I'm just saying they are shit though, and they don't deserve to be around.
And this thread goes to the front. It's the top post of the Cisco subreddit. So Pimp wakes up. He's been in the gym. He's sharpened his chin.
Oh, Vince! I love Vince. Yeah, he does deserve better. Let me have a look. Oh, good news about casters. Finally, let's see a bit of this. All right, this guy met him. Vince seems like a cool guy. Don't be around low-level fuckers like Pimp and Vince. Oh, that's my idea ruined, isn't it?
Like, how many kicks to the balls is Dust going to get from Reddit? Like, how many times is Dust going to be sat man-spreading and Reddit's going to take a run up and kick both of his fucking pods up into his fucking skull? Like, why are you doing that? Like, why? Why are you doing that to fucking Dust? And then he has the audacity to say in the next sentence, I don't want this to be a Pimp Dust hate thread. Could have left him out, mate.
Amazing.
Could have left him out. And then he goes on and says, listen, I enjoy them on the desk and think they get too much hate. They aren't caster material, though. That's just so great.
Cheers, Simon Cowell.
You have literally fucking spread your cheeks and took a diuretic shit all over Dust's life. It's fucking unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And then anyway, he goes on to just say Vince is like one of the realest people in esports. He's the same in person as he is on stream. But he also says, let me get to this. I really hope we see him at more tier 1 events in the future. He said his future is uncertain with work. Would be a real shame to lose him. He's one of the best we have. I firmly believe, given the right duo, he could be one of the best casters in CS. We've said this. We think that's 100% accurate. He's underrated even by some of his peers. It's apparent from watching by the numbers. Thorin doesn't rate him. There you go, mate. It's apparent. You've tried to.
This guy seems on the ball. He's very observant, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He is. Reddit, eh? And to be fair, I know this isn't what Vince meant, but he did reply and he went, "This brought a tear to my eye." Which part? The bit where Dustin Pimp get wrecked, though. Brought a tear to their eyes.
It's probably the part where he just read, I always knew Thor hated me. Finally, someone else has confirmed it for me. Right? That's it.
It's so weird. I've said this in general. I don't know why people always make assumptions about, like, the talents relationships.
The best one ever. Like, you know,
so
this
ridiculous.
one. Because this was a real classic on Reddit. Like when CSGO really started popping off was 2015, which was the year where me and Richard were on almost every single desk except DSL, basically. We used to do the whole circuit. And if people don't remember, either Richard was the host or at Gfinity, Scoops was the host and Richard was an analyst for me. Because at the time, there were no analysts. It was me and then me and Richard, and that was it. Everyone else, literally what they would do was, there was no dedicated analysts. The casters would just rotate and take turns to join us on the desk. We'd have Stemler, or we'd have Anders, or we'd have Henry. You know, we'd take one of them each time. And so in that world, because we were always there, we would have to banter with a caster. And you know, some of them are all right, but they're never like the best at coming up with lines and stuff because they're just casters, you know, it's not their world. So as a result, like this show here, we would pick someone, Anders in this case, and we would bang on them repeatedly. Because, you know, we're not the more... Listen, we have our own lane that we stay in. We don't want to say the most creative or whatever. But once a joke works, you go back to that well a few times, don't you? Well, it's still got water in it.
Drink it deep.
So famously, people would always speculate on Reddit. Like, they'd go so next level. Do you remember that show that they briefly launched around the time of, like, The Mentalist and those shows that they thought was going to pop off?
The Mentalist is fucking appropriate, by the way.
They had that guy, though. I can't... Oh, what's his name? What's the guy from Reservoir Dogs who's, like, the
Tim Roth
cop? Yes, he was in it, and it was where he was like... It's called Would I Lie to You? And the premise was he was a guy who could, like...
He can look at the face.
He could see the micro... emotion that you had, right? And he could tell as a result what your mainframe was, whether you were lying. He could tell all sorts of shit about you, right? Except obviously it was an exaggerated premise. People start doing that and they would start posting theories like, you can tell that when Anders laughs at one of Thorin's jokes, he's not really laughing. What he's thinking is, God, I wish I could get away from this guy. I hate him so much. And the mad thing about that was, what people don't know is, me and Anders are probably two of the people of the casting crew who just have always pretty much gotten along like absolutely amazingly well. I don't think we've almost never had a falling out ever. We pretty much on the same wavelength when we talk about. So like this guy had read it 180 degrees wrong, but in his mind again, they're just allowed to create like it's like that shit where they're just like K-pop fans just deciding like I've decided these two people love each other and I will now make them love each other. Like it's almost on that level. Like you're just demented.
Oh, I know. I get it myself as well. It's like people are always like, you and Duncan fucking spending all the time with each other, skipping hand in hand through fucking fields. Like, you motherfuckers don't have a clue. You don't know anything about what we do outside of the show. You don't know anything about the relationships. You don't know which talent are arguing with which talent. It's
not a soap opera.
Like,
yeah, exactly. We haven't actually given much away about our lives. You only see us and people talk about CS.
Exactly, and that's how we like it. You mad cunts. It's unbelievable. It is like getting someone in the chat type. It's just like the Raylos. Yeah, it is actually. People have created all these fictitious relationships in their mind. It's just nonsense. Right, let's talk about Big. Wrap up Dream at Leipzig. We'll talk about all the shit show with the leagues and we'll get the fuck out of this. So, Big. Who saw that coming, eh? They fucking go for this full German lineup, smooth out, you know. Or you're kind of looking at it thinking, I don't know. Well, to get a tournament under their belt, what a mad way to start 2020. And they didn't drop a single map over the course of the tournament. Most of their maps, very convincing. Searson and Tabson, absolutely immense. You know, the new guys that came in, you know, Keto's back in, Tizian's in, obviously alongside Zantares. You know, they just played really, really well. Makes you wonder about Godby's coaching. But and how much of a factor that is, or whether it's just a mood thing, and now that they've gone to everybody speaking German and being able to communicate, and Smoothie is actually out the door and everything else, I don't really know. But this didn't look like the big team that we'd seen before, and as you pointed out, they comfortably beat Renegades on 3 maps, comfortably beat Virtus Pro, comfortably beat Heroic. I mean, that's you can't ask anything more for this tournament. So I was very impressed. And of course, as we'll segue into talking about with the leagues, remember, this is a team that has been cast aside by ESL. Despite them looking like they do have this potential now to go on and kick up the rankings.
I mean, they have the firepower now, and actually probably the most positive thing. You're actually right, yeah, obviously Tabson, I guess it was a stats monster again. That's another thing. Tabson's back. Like I said before, the only things you ever had going for you in big was God B, Tabson, and then after that, maybe Smoothie, but even that's contingent on the rest. So because obviously the Xantares trade initially failed, if you look at how it was performing. So nowadays, they don't even need Xantares to be the best player in the team. Tabson's actually back to looking really good. So when you look now at the general firepower of the team, the overall chemistry already looks way better than Big was last year. This actually has potential as a team, because as much as Germany's a meme in CSGO, they've also barely ever had proper German teams. Like they always had fucking a Legia in it, or Godby himself was never a good fragger. So they always had like a couple of the cards in the deck stacked against them. This team, as long as they can manage the whole IGL situation, actually has like some legit potential. I think it's not terrible. I don't think it's going to be a top team, but put it this way, at this level, they could clean up.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And that kind of makes it a tragedy that, where are we going to see them realistically? Like they're being told you're in the Mountain Dew League, suck it up.
Yeah, they're basically in almost nothing, right?
Yeah, and as we've alluded to, we don't know if financially they can scrape together the 2 million to get into B-side.
I mean, you can go through the qualifier, but even so, that's going to be hard. There'll be good teams in that.
Absolutely, and obviously not deemed big enough to get invited by the Blast. So now you're basically left with ESL table scraps, which obviously they'll probably throw them an invite to Cologne, for example.
Yeah, of course.
In a cynical fashion. But if I was big, I'd tell ESL to stick it up their ass. Very complicated situation, because you need to be at big tournaments to benefit your sponsors. Plus, you might get a run at one of those big tournaments like Big did before, make it to the final. Maybe you can bring in a big sponsor off the back of a good performance. And obviously, players want to play, and they want to play against the best. So maybe if you make a business decision to say, fuck ESL, obviously, the players might not like it, might not be aligned with that management vision. And that's what I really hate about what happened with ESL, sort of kicking these guys out, especially. Obviously, it's terrible what they did to every team. But these guys are in a position now where when you get offered the table scraps, you might realistically have to take them, because you might not get any other food for the rest of the year. And I think that's so disgusting for a team that, honestly, they've come a long way in a very short time. Remember, this brand didn't exist in 2016, I think, at the start of 2016. So they have come a long way, and they've had some very iconic moments within CSGO along that. It's a tough one for me. I honestly think they've been treated so badly by some of their prospective partners. And
well, here's the joke for you, Richard. Are you ready?
Yeah, go on.
So you remember how I said one of the things I found most obnoxious about the way ESL cut the slots isn't the whole, if you actually know the financial situation, on that level, I don't blame them. It's the way they handled it. But what I found so obnoxious is that when they opened up those other divisions, we're going to have Asian qualifiers and we're going to expand into South America, all these different things, right? When they did that, they always put it behind a fake virtue signal, fucking moral, almost like we're going to bring civilization to these areas and develop them. And they're developing regions that one day will join us in our utopia. I guess you're going to have to develop your home country of Germany, you daft cunts. You've cut them out. You're German. Your own country.
I know.
What sort of mad turncoat move is this?
Oh no, it is unbelievable. And it's like I say, it does make you wonder if the fact that Mouse Sports were fully committed to WISA, it does make you wonder if there's something else to it than that. That the idea that they want Mouse Sports to remain the dominant brand in the German space, that they're actually, I mean, seriously, there's so much cynical stuff going on behind
That is
the
how
scenes with
esports works in Europe, by the way. If anyone doesn't know, in America, they can be cunts, but they kind of do it in like an obvious business manner. In Europe, it's all Game of Thrones. You have to just know who the Varys and Littlefinger guys are, and if you know, they're just doing that shit all the time.
So I feel incredibly sorry for Big, but I mean, again, you got to give credit to the team, credit to the org, credit to the managers. What a way to respond. You know, they've come into this tournament with all of this like bad news being associated with them, potentially losing a spot that's worth, it's no exaggeration to say, potentially worth millions of dollars to an organization, being told that they're essentially going to be relegated into the Mountain Dew League. And as a result, may not even be thought of highly enough to come to regular spots on the ESL Tour, which dominates 80% of the calendar. Well, here they are at a DreamHack on home soil, and they go out and win it. So, you know, I can't speak highly of them enough. And honestly, the original vision, going back some way, for like one of the things that was talked about back when some of these players were in NRG, was that God B was going to manage a group of like young players. Their original vision, I think, was going to be Justin with the 9 in his name, who plays like Battle Royales now, Silent. Obviously, they had Tabson in there. PTR was part of that team too.
A lot of fallen soldiers there.
Yeah, but the thought, there was a lot of talk that when God B, you know, had to hang up the mouse, he was going to be a guy that could like coach and develop young players, create a system. Well, he's finally getting to do that now, and there isn't a better. I can think of few better players in World Counter-Strike that are better suited to that kind of role. This guy is a fucking encyclopedia of Counter-Strike, both history, mechanics, like everything you could ever want to know. He's got the right temperament to be a leader, and he commands respect from anybody that's ever installed Counter-Strike in Germany because he's a motherfucking legend. So, you know, I want to certainly put a little bit of shine his way because he's part of this win too, even though you didn't see him, you know, on the server and not in a role that you're familiar with. But
that's actually, by the way,
very impressed by Big.
That's something that is sad. Is listen, I got it when these players like God B, like if you have a team that can get to the ESL One Cologne final, okay, you can extend your career a bit longer, see what's possible. Okay, you didn't manage it, whatever, it was a one-off, but that showed some potential as a reason to keep playing then. If you look now, it is depressing that so many of those people who are the obvious lock to be a scout, a coach, a general manager, God B, Hunden, Existence, these are the guys where the second they even do a tweet saying, by the way, I'm available to be a general manager or a coach, like, do you know how many fucking people would smash down their door to sign them for a massive fee? Like, we're talking, you could probably get a guy with that tenure could probably get paid twice the players. Like, the idea is he would develop talent for you. He would tell you who the next guy is without you having to pay a buyout. Those guys, no joke, could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to your org if they wanted to do it. The sad thing is, except for now with God B, almost none of them are willing to do it. None of them have opened that horizon in their mind. So what I'll say is this. I'm with you on the angle. It's rough, especially with this result, that they're not in any of the leagues, because they're even a team where if you just look at the currently reported teams in the B-Site League, they could mix it up with those teams. They could get busy. The problem is, one, can they get the $2 million? And even if they do, remember the other factor is it's like buying a house, where if you buy a house, you have to have the money to fix it up too. There's the fines, isn't there? So if you do badly, I don't want to see the whole big org get bankrupted because they just did too badly in the B-Site League. So it's like, you probably need like 3 million to be in that league. So that it's not like it's impossible. If people don't know, there were Overwatch League and LCS teams that didn't have the money, but the fact that they could get a league to say, if you did have the money, we would take you, was almost enough of an IOU type scenario. You could go to a sponsor, investor rather, I should be saying, and the investor would say, right, well, since you got the spot, I will give you the money. In fact, sometimes they would do deals contingent on you getting the slot. Certain teams, I believe CLG or someone was along those lines. So it's not like it couldn't happen. It's just that I feel like they might be one of the teams it's a gamble for because they don't have the best team. They have an all right one. And also it's not like they're not, listen, say what you like, Splice have money. Say what you like, obviously Cloud9, Gen G, etc. These teams have a lot of money. Like they can withstand all of this stuff. So I just also don't know if even if they get into the B-Site League, if it's the place for them. But then again, I will say I don't know their financials. A lot of this is assumptions based on where they are in the industry and kind of it's almost like process of elimination on what I know about other teams at their level, you know.
So I guess we can start getting into the fucking shit show about all the leagues again. because this isn't going anywhere anytime soon. We've had a bunch of stuff coming out. Do you want to just get the B-site announcement out the way? I think that's pretty quick. Yeah. Let me just bring this up because there's so much to plow through. They basically announced their teams that are going to be involved. And I think, was it DK that put this report out? It probably is, almost certainly was.
No, it was actually Jacob Wolf.
Oh, it was actually Jacob Wolf, right? Okay, my bad.
But I will say, unfortunately, listen, I don't know whether he'd admit it, but I'll just tell you, he's obviously not super duper in CSGO. He only does the occasional piece. One thing he did do that did irritate me a bit because it was just factually incorrect is when he posted the teams that he claimed would be in, which again, I can't confirm or deny, they're just the teams he's reported. But when he reported them, he tagged all the teams in, right? Except for the team that no one knows yet what the official name will be, if indeed they are in the league. But the team that was bought from Crazy, the roster, he tagged in Crazy and then even said in a follow-up tweet, which made it even less clear, he said that it's new management, totally inaccurate and factual. Like, it's not new management. It's a different team that bought them. So it's not new management of Crazy. Again, you've actually blurred the waters even further there. And then thirdly, implied they might change their name. Well, it's not Crazy, so they'll definitely be changing their name, won't they? So you've actually struck out there. That's 3 strikes. You're out. Back to the mine as you go. Like, because the thing is, I actually want Jacob Wolf in CSGO. He is one of the best people in the world at his job. So I wish CSGO
probably going to have to bounce from ESPN if he wants to do any serious reporting.
That's probably true because there's obviously the whole Disney angle that we've brought up in the past. It's the reason why they try and pretend CSGO doesn't exist. But the problem is, I would like him to be, in the mix with the other big names, going after the big stories, breaking stories maybe that other people don't get. He just sort of like, most of this report was fine. Again, can't confirm or deny. He just did drop the ball on that one, and then I think just not knowing the space, he then misspoke a couple of times and didn't realize he actually wasn't clarifying. He was making it more confused. So I'm just clarifying that now. Definitely is not Crazy if indeed they are in the league. No, I wouldn't let that cunt near this league fucking anything, mate. I'd have like claymores set up, like perimeter dogs, cameras, get him out,
No, and it's like I said to you, I think the worst part about all of this business kind of movements and transactions is that manager
made over $1 million.
Yeah, that manager made over $1 million selling the roster. It's like, fucking get me out, in
a world where other people are losing loads of money doing CSGO. He's like, it's easy to CSGO.
That idiot looked out. Just how it works sometime in esports. So yeah, the announcement anyway, made on ESPN by Jacob Wolf, reports 6 teams is being confirmed. Cloud9, which I think at this point we can safely say Cloud9.
That was pretty obvious. Yeah. We did have the guy who runs Cloud9 on this. Like, the thing about our league, Richard.
Yeah, exactly. Go watch episode 103, guys, if you haven't already. Cloud9 president. Gen G, Dignitas, which of course is the old NIP lineup with Fifth Lauren as coach. MIBR, Mad Lions, and whatever the crazy team is going to be called. I think it wasn't a rumor going around they're going to be called Concept or something with a 0.
I believe it was Contact.
Oh, was it Contact? I don't know. Whatever.
You're thinking of the concept with the 0.
The concept maybe. Yeah, I don't know. But the bottom line is,
they don't have that many cheaters. Yeah.
They can't get away. They can't get away from leak speak. So listen. It's as we expected the B-Site League to be. We knew who the heavy hitters were going to be. We knew MIBR and Cloud9 were going to be the water carriers in terms of brand awareness. But that's only 6 out of, I think, wasn't it going to be a minimum of 12 in the league?
12, and I think some of them will be from qualifier spots. So I would guess if it indeed was those 6, think of a couple more probably adding in. So the main thing to add, by the way, this is context everyone's missing. This is why you can't win in esports, right? So if you reveal nothing and do it professionally and do a press conference and do releases and do an official announcement, then in the meantime, everyone goes, why aren't you telling us what's happening? I need to know all the information now. Half of that was people who fucking work for massive websites in the game. But then if you were to release all the info now before you've had a chance to officially announce it all, like before you even know the teams, then they'll just go, this is bloody unprofessional, announcing part of it. This is like a bloody 2-bit amateur hour thing. Like, what's going on here? So you can't win either way. So all I'll say is this. Think about it. The scandal around ESL posting all those invited teams, when as far as we know, at this point in time, only 2 teams have even intimated they will play in EPL, is the idea that you'd announce the teams before you know them. So first of all, you don't announce the teams before you know them. That's literally a tier 1 standard precedent in esports. You just don't do it. Secondly, if all of those teams, remember everyone said when they saw the invite list for EPL, they've got them all. They've got all the top teams. They haven't got them all, but that means that they aren't signed either way. So the fact that all the top teams aren't signed, think about who would be signed. Teams that either are Cloud9 and MIBR, as you say, obviously breaking away, and that's the whole initiative, or it would be teams where they don't care about EPL anyway, and they just want to be involved in it, and they want to, like newer brands like Gen G, for example, who are saying, we'll do the buy-in as we would into an Overwatch league, and the idea is we'll invest and become a top team one day, even if we aren't right now. So it actually makes perfect sense that these are the teams. I'll agree, they're underwhelming teams if you've heard all the hype of like, it's going to be a straight fire league, all this great stuff. Yeah, if I saw this group of teams, and this was, if I wasn't involved in it, we were doing this show, I would obviously run down them and go, Cloud9, okay, maybe they can be all right someday. Gen G has some good players, totally unproven. Who else have we got in there? Who were the other teams he listed? Mad Lions, did he say?
Yeah, Mad Lions.
Mad Lions obviously has potential, but they've been take two so far. Who else was it? The Contact team.
Yeah,
okay, they're good fraggers.
The NIP guys.
Oh, Dignitas guys. I think they might be one of the worst teams of the bunch. Mentioned so far, even though everyone's obviously going to see the names and go crazy. What was the last one? It was one more. MIBR. There you go. Yeah. MIBR actually at least has some world class players in some positions, but has had bad form. So yeah, if you look at those, there's no banger there. There's no one I'm picking to win. Like
plenty of really good narrative strands to pull on, though. You know,
certainly.
So, yeah.
So I agree. They need some heavy hitters if they want to make it the team list pop. Now I don't have to worry about that. I'm putting the league on my fucking back for the content anyway. That was my plan as it was. But the question is, how heavy is it going to be?
So the other thing that happened was, obviously, we talked about it on episode 104, just so people can keep up with everything, which we just put out today. Not on fucking Podbean, you fucking mugs. But the ESL, obviously, the way they've announced their league is they're cutting it in half. 48 teams was what they had spread out across their various, tiers, and now it's 24. And so that means that some teams have been completely fucking wrecked. They thought they had ESL Pro League slots. They don't anymore. And this wasn't even communicated. It wasn't communicated for months in advance that this was going to be a realistic outcome, that this was something that was going to happen. So ESL have put out an apology, which, listen, I am going to take you through two examples now for the rest of this podcast of how to say a lot without saying anything at all. Like, it's classic speech, manipulation. So it appears to be an apology of substance, but what are we really talking about here? So this is obviously from the Flying DJ, who is the spokesperson for the ESL Pro League. On Friday, we announced large changes to ESL Pro League for 2020 and beyond. As part of it, a number of teams were informed that they would have a slot in the upcoming season. We apologize that we have not conducted the process up to the desired standards. We got it wrong by not letting affected teams know further in advance that significant changes were coming, including the number of teams playing. While several important elements that the league structure were unknown until last week, the teams were not given enough notice. Now, just to put into context of how much notice, the LANXESS agreement, which is the basis of the changes to the ESL Pro League, has been in existence since February 2019. So we're almost talking a year. It's 11 months that they've known about this, and teams have been chasing for the last 4 or 5 to get some clarity about whether or not they would have.
By the way, I'll translate that for you. That's not even true. It's not that they didn't let those teams know. They willfully withheld it for obvious reasons. That was their strategy. Their strategy was, please, nobody tell those teams. Clearly. That's just obvious. Like, it wasn't an accident, was it?
He then goes on to say, we were not specific enough about how teams can get back to EPL in the future. Cold comfort if you were already in EPL.
Mental, isn't it?
We are still working on final details in consultation with the CSPPA. More on the Counter-Strike Pro Players Association in a moment. But any of the teams will be able to make it back in Season 12, not only through Mountain Dew League and in a way that ensures regional representation. We did not engage with the affected teams enough to understand how we can preserve the value of the EPL slot they held. We have reached out to all teams and are going to speak this week to make sure we can address their concerns to the best possible extent. ESL Pro League and MDL are core elements of the ESL Pro Tour, and it is our clear intent to make sure that MDL remains and grows as a stable environment for teams to compete in below EPL. All teams affected by the format change have the option to compete there in the coming season. In 2020, we have opened the ESL Pro Tour up with a large number of opportunities for aspiring teams to reach the Masters level, including spots for challenger tournaments in Masters tournaments and a mandated percentage of open online qualifiers in our Masters stops.
Oh, by the way, that actually means, I forgot to say that, by winning Leipzig, Big qualifies to the next Masters.
Yeah.
That was part of the tour, I forgot to mention. So they do have one big tournament coming up at least. Whenever that is, I can't remember what it is.
We remain committed to making sure that the broad spectrum of our activities, as many teams as possible, receive chances to compete at the highest level. We will release more detail in the next days, and we will continue to provide updates and engage with everyone on this topic.
So are they going to replace my washing machine or not, Rich? I couldn't tell it. That's mental in their corporate. You know, by the way, that's one reason why. Listen, I've no doubt I'll slip up. I even slipped up. You could say a few days ago, and I apologize.
Well, I was going to get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But one other thing I'll say is this. I am going to absolutely murk ESL when it comes to PR. Like, if they're going to do this approach to PR, they're not going to be able to fuck with me. You can't fuck with someone. Like, I'm going to be the Dana White. I can just cut. I mean, it's not my role, but, you know, when I do speak, I can just cut straight through the bullshit, can't I? Like, I've even just told you, they're not the best teams in the league. I didn't try to upsell you for 10 fucking minutes with every possible bullshit angle, because everyone will be able to smell the bullshit and be like, this is really off-putting, isn't it? It makes me just fucking hate everything about the game.
Yeah. I think, you know, basically what that statement says to me is like,
We might throw you some money. Sorry,
we did the bad thing. We were always going to do the bad thing. We don't even really regret doing the bad thing.
You know, it's the word regret basically doesn't even come into it.
Yeah, mechanically, we couldn't have told you about it any sooner than we did, because we don't know what the fuck's going on ourselves, because we've had issues with Valve, issues with potential partner teams, and you were essentially the least of our considerations. We are doing what's good for our business and our business partners and their businesses. And you guys will just have to suck it up, but we are willing to sit down and have some meetings with you where we will feed you.
We'll say it's to your face if you want.
Yeah, we'll feed you some bullshit about how you will definitely get. It will be made up for you in time by this new glorious system. That's how I've read it, and ultimately, it seems to be of, like I say, just cold comfort to any of the teams affected. You know, the Sprout manager, who's called Daniel Paulus, known as Singing Manager on Twitter, responded. He actually even said, do you want me to come on the show and listen to someone that's been absolutely fucking bent over by these changes? Because Sprout, I mean, we've talked about big. Sprout are another local team, you know, to that league that have been deeply affected as well with it. His tweet was, in the end, we will not keep the slot and we have a hard monetary loss. Your words are nice, but no solution for the problems we'll have to face because of your decision. And who says that we don't get kicked again in future if we qualify again? You're kicking teams which already qualified through the Mountain Dew League. Now, this, of course, is a very valid point. And this is why it goes to the heart of, you know, competitive integrity, all these conflicts of interest, all these broad topics me and Duncan have been talking about for years. What does it say when you qualify for a league and the league can turn around and go, for business purposes, we need to completely change the structure of the league and how everything works. And unfortunately, there's no place for you in that league anymore. Go back down to the league where you can get promoted. And if you get promoted again, we'll let you in. And it's like, okay, cool. Even if you accept that as being a reasonable thing, well, why doesn't it happen again next year? You know, imagine a world where the Premier League... says, listen, I've been looking at the Premier League. I don't like this geographically. Burnley, Aston Villa, the Yam Yams, Wolves, all of these fuckers. Like, it's just not sexy anymore. I want Leeds back. I want Portsmouth back. I want it to be like how it was back in the day. So we're just kicking all you cunts out and bringing them all in. But don't worry, we're only kicking you into Division 1, and then you go to the teams in Division 1. You're getting kicked down to Division 2, and you're getting kicked down to Division 3. But this is a one-time thing. We'll definitely never do it again. And then over a period of years, those unglamorous teams work their way back into the top flight of football, and the Premier League executives go, fucking hell, we're having a hard time selling these games. Our TV revenue's down, our fucking beer sponsors are down, you know, no one's tuning in for the games because no one really wants to watch fucking Wolves versus Burnley on a Monday night after a hard day at work. So fuck it, we'll kick all the cunts out again. That is a very realistic premise that is being sold here. ESL is saying, if at any point we need to do what's best for business, we will not stick to what appears on the surface to be a contractual obligation to allow you to compete in our league.
And I'll now invoke the magic phrase which should describe all this: competitive integrity. You're not a league. The whole point of a league is promotion, relegation. Like, you're in there. Think about this, right? Obviously, like, we can address it later if you want, or I can contrast it now. Like, the problem here is people are going to say, well, it's a shame with ECS, isn't it? They've lost their slots. No, like I actually explained in a video, Faceit owns 0.5% of B-Side. And every single team that's bought in has more than them and has more than them when they'll fully vest. So they, in no context, own the B-Side project, and they are not the decision makers. They are literally the operators of the league. They just do what we tell them to, and at any time we could fire them, except I wouldn't even use that language, because if everything goes great, we won't. They'll just be the operators. Great. Yeah. So in that scenario, if ESL had done that, they'd had to close the league. And if they'd even started a new one called the ESL Champions League, I'd sort of even vaguely say that's similar. But this is where ESL's fucked themselves by trying to make a whole ecosystem. Spoiler, that was always to become a fucking monopoly, by having the Mountain Dew League. Because what you've done now is, as Richard says, you know, when we used to say it, I always used to think it was massively sinister how they kept changing the relegation rules and giving you 10 extra chances, basically called like the Virtus Pro must be an EPL fucking rule. And that's how you knew when Virtus Board really hit rock bottom, when they weren't even fucking in anymore after a billion chances. That's one thing. That's semi-sinister, because what you're doing there is, right, I'm going to have this top league and I'm going to try and find a way to keep one extra team in. Okay, that's fucked up, but it's not as bad as going, you qualified to that league. You're already in that league. I'm going to say no. I'm putting you down again. Like, that's not, there's no competitive integrity at that point in time. Like, you've actually ruined the concept of the project. Like, imagine, by the way, someone tried to write an article next year. It's called The History of ESL Pro League. It would have to go like this. And then, of course, I'm going to pick like a random team. Like, I don't know, fucking did Sprout qualify this season or something? Sprout qualifies for the EPL. And then we're moved back down because of financial consideration. Like, what? What, in what universe could you ever write a league history and then go, I can keep writing, this is a real thing? No, it's, at that point, it's WWE. You're just deciding who wins.
Yeah.
Not even the game.
So, you know, I can't wrap my head around, you know, how they thought this was going to play out in any sort of meaningful way. Like, I mean, you know, basically the way ESL get away with it is no one really gives a fuck about the teams they've kicked out. Let's be real about it.
They're not big enough teams, let's be real.
Yeah, they're not big enough. They don't have...
And there's nothing you can do. There's another good factor. You can cry. You can say everything you want on Twitter. You can't stop them. And even worse, listen, you know what? I'll even include myself in this because it's true for me as well. Do you think I'm not going to watch ESL One Cologne? I mean, I'm not going to work there. I will say as a result of this, which I said on Twitter. But do you think I'm not going to watch ESL One Cologne if it's a banger fucking match just because they kicked out of Swole Patrol? Listen, sorry, Swole Patrol. I think it's fucked up. I'm still going to watch ESL One Cologne. So even I'm not doing anything against this. I'm not boycotting ESL. No, I mean, I'm not working with them, but that's a side topic. Put that.
I mean, no, it's a side topic. I guess we'll segue into. I mean, like, the reality is there's not really, like, ESL know that there isn't anything that you can do. Like, the key thing they had to do here was get the top tier teams on board.
Yes.
Take as little flack as possible from the CSPPA. And hope they couldn't mobilize players against the league. Yeah, which will come to that.
Another brilliant statement coming.
Yeah. And also as well, like, look at the ties between the lesser teams they were kicking out and doing wrong by, and look at where they're, you know, do they have a tie to an Intel? Do they have a tie to Mountain Dew? Do they have a tie to a big company, Coca-Cola, something like that, that could get ESL on the comeback if a partner was upset? Well, obviously none of them do. That's why they're the Havus of this world. That's why they're a Sprout. And they cold, clinical, and in calculating fashion have never included them in the discussions.
Finally, living up to some German stereotypes, at least.
Yeah, and always knew that ruthlessly these were going to be the guys to make way for the glorious new vision, the glorious new utopia of the ESL Pro League. All ESL were concerned about is how much of a hit are we going to take in the short term, reputationally and financially. And understand it's not even in that order. In fact, ESL couldn't give a fuck about what the community think about them. That is why they consistently adopt the positions that only serve the interests of ESL, and do so with. When have ESL had a good PR game? Do you know why they don't have a good PR game? Because to have a good PR game, you have to care about PR. You have to go out, hire somebody who knows the lay of the land, understands it all, pay them a lot of money, make them the public face, build it all up. You have to strategize with PR in mind. Like, yes, we're giving someone a bad bill of sale here, but how can we win the public? ESL don't give a fuck. That's why they don't play the PR game. They don't care about PR. Some mealy-mouthed apology days after the fucking bomb's gone off. What is that? It's meaningless.
Also, by the way, listen, I'm not trying to bag on anyone. I know, and like, here's another problem. There's a lot of people in the world, companies like ESL are an example of this, where they think you can work office hours and be in esports. Like, it was over the weekend, so on Monday, I'll put together a report. Right, if you're going to write a bunch of bollocks, I could have wrote that in half an hour for you. That should just go out with me. If you're going to just lie to people's faces, because there's the other angle that's stupid about this. You know what? As fucked as this sounds, even though I still wouldn't be able to fuck with the way that they did it all, I'd almost begrudgingly respect them if they just put out a statement that was brutal, that just said, you know what, I'm sorry, we can't continue supporting teams like this. We can't have you as part of our model. You don't make us money. We lose money and we'll never recoup it from you. So even though it's going to be terrible for you because you might never be in EPL again, I have to have teams in EPL that I think are brands I can work with. And so, you know what? I'm giving you something. Be grateful for that. I'm going to give you MDL. That's all I'm going to give you. And you know what? I'm sorry if you don't like it, but there will be no ESL, there will be no Counter-Strike scene as we know it, unless I do it this way. And so even if people don't like it, you will have to swallow it. That is simply the way it is. We are ESL, fuck off. Like, I'd almost begrudgingly respect that. Like, there'd be almost like a harsh but fair element. I mean, it wouldn't be fair.
Well, I was going to ask Duncan if you'd seen the original draft that I was about to leak tomorrow. I'm just joking. No, that is just by any other name exactly how they think about it.
Because that basically is what that should have said.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I'm like, be honest and just own your shit. I mean, you're still doing the bad thing anyway. So trying to dress it up when people aren't concerned about how you dress up the bad thing. They're just concerned about the bad thing. So you may as well, just come out and explain.
Why is it that you're going to do it, benefit from it, and then literally do it? Nah, never do that. Like, you are doing it. Like, that is what you are doing. Oh, it's an accident. Oh, shit, have I cut you? Team that would never make me money. Bloody hell, now I'm probably just going to succeed or something. Fuck. Oh, well, I'd never do that. Well, I would do it again. I did do it, okay. That's all that matters. Like, give me a break. Like,
so anyway, while we're talking about you and PR, let's talk about, because I mean, me and Sam, like, I'll just, again, Duncan, I can't lie anymore. I don't have it in me. I'm like, right. I just can't be arsed with it. So me and Sam were like, after the last episode, we were sat there like basically watching you fucking tee off on Twitter, and I was
good, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, oh yeah, me and
people weren't prepared. They just weren't prepared.
No, me and Sam. All right, Illidan. Me and Sam were fucking going he loves setting everything on fire. This could. Me and Sam were just sat in the living room like having a big one. He's fucking he's just out.
Oh no, I am absolutely the guy. I'm like. I'm on that shit where it's like, if you ever give me a dragon, like, I will obviously burn all the fucking villages to the ground. Only do that in case of emergencies.
Khaleesi shields all up in this motherfucker.
Yeah, of course.
So I was like, I was watching it and I was like, well, I don't know why he said like he won't work with ESL anymore and called them like rat cunts or whatever it was. I mean, like, that's fair enough. I mean, like, I think there's probably is a world where, like you say, it all gets fixed again because we adopt positions as and when things are happening, right? But then when I saw you going in on the CSPPA, I was like, oh, I don't. Like, I know what it's like when you just windmilling in a bar fight and you just fucking punching everyone because you don't know where.
Someone steps up. Hey, stop that. Oh, exactly. You want it as well. You get it as well.
He might not have any beef with you, but he's a little too close, so I'm just going to give him a fucking dig anyway. Like, it's a bar fight. Like, it's fucking crazy. Everyone hits everyone else once. Like, so, like, you fucking obviously, like gave digs to like the CSPPA and Chris J and stuff like this, and I'm like, not beautiful, gentle Chris, like not Chris. You can't break Chris J's glasses like that, mate. That's so unreasonable. Like he's got the little fucking plaster holding them together. Going, Duncan, why did you hit me? And you're like, yeah, I sincerely apologise. I was just straight windmilling the entire CSC.
You know what's funny, by the way?
It was insane how mentally went.
I didn't check, but I'm going to assume people probably thought I was forced to write that apology. I wasn't at all. Like that's.
Oh, I know that. No. People did say like, they must have real dirt on Thorin.
No
I was like, yeah. Good call. Blackmail the man who's just
here's the problem.
Entire CSC. Like
the problem is, I'll give you the distinction actually that I realised. Here's the distinction. ESL did all the bad things, and then not only did them all intentionally and for the most sinister of reasons, but now will lie and say they never did it for that reason, and that, can you please not say those things about them, while they then get to benefit from the actions that they took. Here's the difference. CSPPA didn't actually intentionally, in my opinion, just say we only care about top teams, fuck all the bottom teams. That is just actually an accidental byproduct of their behavior and their initial limitations, as people like Scoots actually pointed out. So the problem is they're not working from the position we are, which is we must fix this problem. Their whole scenario is, well, if we didn't exist, ESL would do literally anything they wanted. So we'll just try and get them to do some things we want, and we'll have to just settle for that at the moment. So when I realized that, here's the difference. The reason why it took all the venom out of it for me is because I realized it wasn't intentional. They didn't do it with bad intentions, in my opinion. And if you do it with bad intentions, that can sometimes, in my opinion, be worse than the act, because the idea is you set out to fuck people up. So when I realized that, I realized actually, at best, some of these people were just naive.
I mean, look, the reality here is, like, the CSPPA, it's historic. It's a historic
the premise
occurrence.
Is at least. They haven't done anything yet, but you know.
Well, I mean, even so, its existence to even get these motherfuckers round the table, it's historic, and it's been a long time coming. This is a fight that has been happening across all of esports for a long time. Like, we need one of these. We need one of these. We need one that's free from the developer, free from all these negative influence. It's never happened up until this point. So I'm always like, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to fucking, I'm pulling for them. I want them to succeed. I want them to do right by the players. But equally, what you have to remember, and what everybody kind of, I think, has forgotten here, and this is where I guess I'm a little bit more pragmatic, is the reality is that what can they realistically do here in this particular instance? They can't make ESL change its entire business model that it believes it needs to do to not just thrive but actually survive. If you start looking at all the financial particulars and how they've been losing money and deals have been going awry, this is what they believe they have to do to keep the fucking lights on, essentially. You're never going to convince somebody like, listen, I know it. Give me all that. Let's share out all the food, because I'm sure that in this apocalyptic scenario, we'll find some more, right? No, you're going to ration it, and you're going to say, fuck that guy. He's too old. We're going to just push him out on the iceberg. He's got to go. That's essentially what ESL are doing. They're saying there's too many mouths to feed and not enough food coming into the colony, right? So, that's what the CSPPA can't make them change that fucking philosophy, that finding. And they can't, because of that, they can't leverage their members, who, by the way, most of which are benefiting from this. They can't then, so to represent 50% of the members, I mean, that's not the accurate number. It's probably closer to like 10, 20% of the numbers.
Yes.
But to represent that 10, 20% as best as they can, they would have to do harm, essentially, to their other 80% membership. It's an impossible position. All they can do is ensure that the majority of their members' views are represented at the table. Now, did the CSPPA do that? I think they did. I think they came away initially from the deal feeling very good about it. You saw ESL made that announcement going, hey, we got the CSPPA on board, and they said that the gold standard for looking after players, this was the CSPPA statement, it's the gold standard for looking after players. We love doing ESL tours, we love doing the league, we love doing events, we'll be there. But what they obviously didn't take into consideration was that small percentage, and said, fuck, what we should have done before we let ESL come out and put that statement out and give them that quote We should have addressed this first and said, listen, we understand some of our members aren't happy with the changes that are going on, but realistically, we fought as hard as we could to get the best deal for as many as our members as possible. Because I believe that's the reality. Yes. But equally...
No, it is. But that's part of my problem, though, is like I say, if I read the bad intention into that angle, that like, oh, you've basically betrayed the other people who some of them were literally part of the CSPPA. So the problem I have is just on a personal level, I will never accept betrayal. And so I even what's mad is people might not know this, but if you've ever followed my Twitter, you'll have seen every now and then I'll rant. I get madder about some of the shit that's happened to people like Monty and even fucking Loco, believe it or not, with some of the shit that Riot Games has done to him. I get madder at that than they do. Some of them are just like, whatever, I'm past it. I'm like, what the fuck? See if there's a chance we can fuck them up in the future. Like, they should never be allowed to forget that. Like, what they did was a disgrace. You know, like, I'd really rather just move on with my life. Like, no, we have to get them. Like, you can't let this stop. So my problem is especially if I thought, because the big problem here is, right, and I understand this, we're in the same position at B-Site. Some things haven't been officially announced yet. So you might think you're not even doing this. It's like, we've already done it, but you can't announce it yet because we haven't got the whole thing lined up to do it all by the numbers, as it were, to do it correctly. So the big problem with CSPPA is that even their original statement was only historic in the sense of like ESL has agreed to engage with us. That's all their basic statement said. It didn't give a single term or any information. So as a result, it sounded like they were all sniffing their own farts. Like, oh, we're incredibly historic and truly progressive action. It's like, but what though? Well, whatever it is, it'll be incredibly historic. Yeah, but what did they do though? A very progressive, but like, yeah, we know buzzwords. What have they done though? So the big problem is it sounded like, right, you congratulated yourselves in ESL when you didn't do anything. Turns out they have, it just hasn't been announced yet. But then even worse, when a real crisis hits, wait a minute, you've already given them all the credit, and what, you're just going to now say nothing and let that everyone gets sold down the river? That just, put it as they say in the modern day, the optics are terrible on that. Even though as I found out, and luckily, listen, if you're a journalist, you can do this. I went out there, found out from some people who know literally what's going on inside. I was incorrect about some of that. And in fact, again, it's not that the actions weren't correct. Some of those are basically similar things, just that they weren't done with those intentions in mind. Those were unfortunate. They were basically casualties of war.
Yeah, and I did the same thing. You know, I reached out to players. I talked to, you know, people, you know, CSPPA members. And trust me, there was a lot of frustration from the players with this. There was a lot of frustration from the players. There were people in different time zones getting wrecked and criticized and seeing the CSPPA get tore apart, while the people that were going to have to come together to put out this statement that I'm about to read, which says fuck all anyway, weren't available. And this is, you know, this is all part of the teething problems that these guys are going to have to go down, that actually you sort of put the cart before the horse a little bit here. Now, what you should have been doing is you should have been thinking about how do we handle the bad stuff that's going to come out first, and then move on to the self-congratulatory, positive. We worked through all that, and this is what we've come to, and it's a great deal for players. If you did it in that order, no one can have any problems with the CSPPA involvement. But what we got told that, like, this was going to be great for players, historic announcement. And then it's like, well, hang on, some of your member teams have been kicked out of a league they righteously qualified for and are being told, yeah, like, guys, like, again, I'm never trying to sell me as a fucking genius, but holy shit, common sense. Common sense has to prevail that before you let ESL use your fucking clout and your statement publicly to make it look like everything's going exactly according to plan and the order of things, you have got to say, wait, we have got to address this bad stuff and make it clear we fought for those members, but our hands were tied.
Because this also, by the way, as you're saying, made it look like they just got instantly. It made it look like we're like, good news, we've made an association. Our first act is to get completely played by the most cynical businessmen in esports. It's like, holy shit, like, be careful when you give your gold star certification to people, like, you know. But as you say, that's why they should have, like, literally, there's one thing they could have done if you're the CSPPA listening. First of all, your messaging was terrible because there barely is any, and you don't have anyone who's a big charismatic spokesperson. That's one thing you're really missing. Secondly, and this is a key thing, even if ESL did it this way, as Richard is saying, let them involve you in the process of messaging so that as ESL says it however they want, you can reassure people, don't worry. I know it seems like we've not been able to fight for these people. We did. It's just that we couldn't win the war for everyone. So we won the battles we could, and we tried to live to win the war in the end. If you messaged it that way, people like me would go right back to fucking ESL up.
Yeah. So you know, listen, so I'm deeply sympathetic with this. I mean, also as well, the notion that the CSPPA has had to mobilize and put statements out and address all of these problems when ESL still don't have teams signed yet. You know, they haven't signed everybody up. We know who it's going to be, or we think we do.
By the way,
but there's still going to be some last minute moves.
What's your take on the idea that every event you've probably ever worked for ESL as an analyst, every time they ever said, and here are the invites, that basically actually was a euphemism, common parlance for these are the teams that have confirmed. We invited, but it's not that we invited them. They confirmed, like we invited, they RSVP'd as it were, and these are the teams. What do you think about the fact that they said, here are the invited teams, and literally at the time, only one team even said, yes, we are going to play.
Yeah, listen, I think, you know, it's okay. So I'll look at it from the ESL perspective. It's very clever linguistic trickery. I mean, it's perfect, perfect for the messaging. I almost have to respect it.
In a court of law, they've nailed it.
Yeah, but one of the things that I'm always highly attuned to is like, why choose this word? Why?
Exactly.
You know, I was just talking about this, funnily enough, with my Discord, ! Discord, if you want to get involved and see the great one, you know, give his pearls of wisdom to our 4,000 plus member strong community. But, you know, I was talking today about this idea. If you remember when Brett Kavanaugh was having all of the snafu, and, you know, they were trying to keep the partisan press were trying to keep him out. Suddenly this phrase that got dredged up from 2010, 2011 again, and was being used as if it held some extra weight. And that was the phrase credibly accused. Of course, there is no legal standard.
What a sinister term that is.
Yeah, there is no legal standard to that. Well, it has no place in law. It doesn't mean anything beyond sort of a sort of subliminal endorsement of the person making the accusation, and that it's by extension the accusation itself must be credible. It's very reckless and irresponsible. This was dissected immensely in the media at the time when that phrase first started entering common parlance about 10 years ago, because it was being attached to priests and sex offenses against children in the Catholic Church. The word credibly accused, the phrase credibly accused, was being used for that specific purpose. And it was a way for the media to sort of frame, yeah, these aren't just like allegations because, you know, it's kids making allegations, or it's, you know, adults making allegations from 30 years ago. It was a way of saying, like, you know, there's a weight of evidence, the church has a problem. It was a way of getting that narrative that we all know to be true kind of cemented in the minds of the people. When you start using that term credibly accused to like say, hey, we don't like this guy and we don't want him to have a job because of something he was accused of, and we're lending our weight to that, that is a sinister term. That is dangerous, but it's linguistic trickery. It doesn't meet the standard of defamation, by the way. You could never sue a publication because they said you were credibly accused
what's
of
credible?
something,
that's the
because
problem,
it's so vague. Exactly, because it isn't a specific legal term. So linguistically, it's ideal, and the media does shit like this every day. And the one area I'll say, for all I criticize ESL for not having a good PR team, one thing they do love to get all jacked up on is this idea of like legalese and rule lawyering, and you can only be held to like what we said we would do, and look at the words. They do like a bit of that. So yeah, for me, whenever E-League used to do announcements when I was working there, when we send invited teams, we didn't put that statement out until the invited teams had accepted. We invited them, they RSVP'd and said they could play in the league, and we put the statements out. That was the process, essentially. And that should be the process, I think, for any league tournament. People want to know who's competing. It cannot be this weird, vague, we invited them. Hey, we don't know who's turning up, though. Like if I said to you, hey, Duncan, man, I invited, you know, all these like wicked celebrities to my party. Gary Oldman's going to be there in a dwarf costume. We're going to be fucking having a good old time. You know, if I fucking said all that, you would assume you were going to see those people at my gaff. And then if you turn up and it's just me and Anders on fucking DMT in a corner, you're probably going to be disappointed. Although probably not, because that'd be straight fire. But that's exactly what ESL have done here. You know, it's very cynical. And at a time while negotiations are going on, it also says to other parties, don't bother. Don't bother. We've got it on lock. So it's cynical. But I mean,
the problem is, I can tell you
CSL.
this, and I can tell you again, I have sources in all these companies. The worst thing is as well, one of the things ESL is going to do, Richard, is double down to their grave. Like, basically, what they try to intimate is like, oh, but that was not what I intended at all. I always say this. I wish my accidents in life just made my career 10 times better and did all the things I fucking wanted and got me all the goal. When I have an accident, it fucks my life up. I do the wrong thing. It's a mistake. It actually costs me. When
I have an accident, it costs me my underwear, usually. Nightmare. But let's read this statement talking of shit. Let's just get the CSPPA statement out of the way, because I don't want to keep you forever.
Yeah. All right, we'll make this last.
So this is the press release they put out. The CSPPA is the worldwide collective of professional CSGO players. We want to be clear and transparent about our role and involvement in negotiations regarding player participation in leagues tournaments. 1. CSPPA exists solely to improve and protect the interests of all professional CSGO players, which are members of the CSPPA. Our membership includes players from all tiers and regions of the competitive ecosystem. 2. A key priority of the CSPPA is to improve the working conditions of players in connection with leagues and tournaments. This is because the life of a professional CSGO player revolves around participation in those leagues and tournaments. 3. In order to improve working conditions of players in connection with participation of those leagues and tournaments, the CSPPA pursues collective agreements with the tournament organizers who consider the pro players an equal negotiation partner and who are willing to negotiate real rights and influence for players with respect to its leagues and tournaments. We refer to our public statement we made on the 29th of August 2019 in this respect. 4. When engaged in such negotiations, the CSPPA will do everything in its power, now and in the future, to push for such leagues tournaments to be open and as inclusive as possible to allow for CSPPA members from all tiers and regions to participate. 5. However, there are business decisions and commercial aspects of such league tournaments which the CSPPA cannot dictate. By the way, point 5 is the first point of any real substance. Point 1 to 4 are just telling you how an association or union would work, which you should know if you're even giving a fuck about this.
Even though I get it, this is a press release, and in a normal world, that would then be taken by newspapers, and you wouldn't read the press release. You would just read their eventual story where they would put in the context, etc. That, bearing in mind, in the modern world that we live in now, of the internet, everyone's just going straight to the statement. Everyone on Reddit seeing the statement. This is terrible for the audience that's actually reading it. Like, this is supposed to address the fans. Again, listen, why do you guys never get this? Yes, corporate speak goes down straight fire when you're speaking to other corporate entities. It goes down like a lead fucking balloon with the community, because the community just goes like, will you just speak to me as a human being? I am speaking to you as a human being. As a representative of ESL Corporation, I thank you for your invite. I request you to no longer no. As soon as you say that, like we just glaze over our eyes. Like half of those, I kept even having at the end of each to go, right, how would that translate into what a human would say? Right, I guess I sort of see that one. Next point, I would represent. Yeah, we get that. Like the terrible reading though. It's terrible reading.
Yeah. So anyway, it continues. This is still point 5. This includes the number of participants in a tournament organizers league tournaments, the composition of teams, the way in which the TO enters teams into its league, and the way in which the TO handles communication in this respect. These dynamics reflect the state of the current competitive CSGO ecosystem, and that league tournament negotiations are complex and commercial collaborations between 3 autonomous parties, the TO, the teams, and the players as represented by the CSPPA. And of course, Valve just lurking in the background to fuck everything up if anything's agreed that they don't like. 6, we are disappointed with the way ESL has handled their communication of the EPL changes. We've been working hard to keep the leagues and tournaments as open as possible, and have been and will continue to do our utmost to ensure that the affected players will have the best possible opportunities to qualify for EPL and other leagues. 7, and final point, the CSPPA players ask the community to trust that we do and will continue to work tirelessly to improve the working conditions of professional players within the commercial realities of the current CSGO ecosystem in a fair and balanced manner, which will elevate professional CSGO for all stakeholders involved, including fans. And then it ends with a hashtag, not without the players, which I don't know why that's there. And actually, I think they missed a T out because it should be without the players, not without the players, but regardless. So basically what they say here is like, we're just disappointed with the way this was rolled out. And it really speaks to an almost toothlessness in terms of the negotiations, which is what I said. There was absolutely no way you were going to make ESL change the fundamentals of its business. and what it believes it has to do to survive and do best by its business and its partners and their businesses. But ultimately, there's a little bit of Orwellian language going on in this, because the issue isn't openness. It's not that the tournaments aren't open. It's that you have achieved something. You have earned something, and ESL have taken it away in a manner that, yes, you have to go to the clause in the partner agreement where it says we can make any changes to the league, and we have complete veto autonomy over any business changes. Anything that's good for ESL
for
business,
obvious reasons, by the way. One thing I'll absolutely agree with is, the players shouldn't be able to literally just tell ESL what to do. I just would hope they'd have more input, or they could negotiate one tiny thing. Like one angle, I'll even say another thing in the language that's very sinister there. So one of the ways people talked me down is they told me, but first of all, stop saying it's like 20 plus teams that we've wrecked. Like most of those teams aren't even teams that we rep as the CSPPA. And they even told me there's even legal reasons we can't. Like certain teams from other countries, we don't even know the labour laws there. They're not actually paying members of the CSPPA. Like, we actually, unfortunately, don't have an obligation. And we have an obligation to our members, right? That's brilliant. So then why didn't they state me like, we are the worldwide? Well, wait a second. Do they not live in the world? Where did they live? Fucking Mars. What are you talking about? Like, you are intimating that you cover all the players in that sense. Like, that's just, again, you're not in a legal sense. You're right. But you're not in a court of law. So a normal person will read that and they will read it, I would say, the way you intended, actually. So just be very careful with Orwellian language, as we're saying here. Like, you can do it the right way, but just don't ever intimate anything you don't actually mean. I'd just say pretty good rule of thumb there.
Yeah, and like I said, I think the sad thing is, like, we're starting to realize now that while the CSPPA is historic, it's gonna take a long while before it is a major player in terms of shaping the ecosystem and the landscape for CSGO, and there's no getting away from it. I mean, the Lanxess agreement, an old version of which I leaked and put it in the public domain, makes it very clear that, first of all, ESL have complete veto autonomy on anything relating to the league, the business, the financial particulars. On top of that, it's also, and they said it there in their own statement, you sit around a table, there are the teams, there are ESL, and there are the players, the CSPPA. And they all get a vote each. And in many instances, ESL get a veto and can just decide regardless of which way the vote goes. Now, what you have to understand there is, best will in the world. It's great that the CSPPA have a seat at the table, but we know that ESL and the teams have been in cahoots multiple times before with things like WISA and that stuff. So it's all, on any matter of player rights and any matter of, hey, we will withdraw our labor and blah, 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 we're going to do this, unless you bring these guys back, let's put it to a vote, eh? Teams are going to go, what's better for us? We make more money, so we're going to vote with ESL. ESL vote with ESL. How are you voting? You're voting with the players? 2-1, great. Passed. How many times do you think that's going to happen? So, and they've said it plainly there. We are in a three-way negotiation with the teams that work with the league and the league that work with the teams. So people probably have higher expectations of the CSPPA and what they can do. And as I alluded to there, the only way CSPPA could ever force meaningful change on these leagues are players willing to go on strike. Yes. To get, would you be willing as a Team Liquid player to forego your $20,000 a month salary and refuse to play in tournaments that you're contractually obliged to, and potentially invite litigation, not just from your organization, but from their business partners?
If your org agrees to play, that's the key thing to understand.
Would you be willing to do that so Sprout can have their MDL slot back? And we all know the answer to that. It's no.
Yeah, it's obvious.
And I'm not blaming you.
And I don't think any fan in that situation would do it either. Like, don't just lie and pretend like you have virtue you don't.
But that's the only way, and that's historically what we know about all worker rights disputes. Like I say, I used to be a fucking trade union rep. I used to be a shop steward. If you're not willing to put your tools down, then everything's a negotiation. Everything's a compromise. It's why strike action is important and needs to be protected. It's the ultimate right you have, and it should be deployed for the most important matters. I don't think this would warrant it, but I don't think the average player, I think if ESL were like, yeah, and you got to sit on these special DX racer seats that fucking jam a knife up your ass while you're trying to play. I don't even think they go on strike then. Oh, fucking hell, can we get some cotton wool? You know, that's just how it is, because you're getting 20 grand a month. You're getting 100% of the prize money. You being allowed to keep all your stream money. The things you've negotiated for now that you love and take for granted, if you're not willing to give them up, you're running out of leverage. You're running out of leeway to fight for these issues. And the CSPPA can only go and represent what you want to do and what you're willing to do. That's how unions work. So the whole thing just seems, you know, an absurd premise that, like, how hard did the CSPPA fight for a percentage of its members when the majority of the members clearly want it to be the way it is, and we're clearly excited about ESL and all the financial, you know, benefits they're going to get from it.
I can sum this up, unfortunately, which is actually the real victim here is actually the CSPPA, but they're also mildly a victim of their own hubris, which is they are absolutely, again, correct. In the context of what is possible right now, what they announced to the ESL is historic. Even getting ESL to come to a negotiation table and agree that we'll listen to you and let you have some input, that is historic. The problem is, again, the way the layman will read that is think, holy fuck, you've got real power and you can do... No, actually what's happened is within the same week, this is why, in a way, as villains, ESL are fucking killing it. Right, what you do is you announce, by the way, for years, you guys have wanted the players to have a say. Congratulations, players. You have a say. And we'll do whatever the fuck we want anyway. The same week, literally days after we agree that you have a say, we show you that all you have is a say. It's a bit like I had a joke one time where I said, like, there was some league, I can't remember, someone like Riot said, like, you know, they'd let, like, players have input on something. I said, you can have input all fucking day long. The question is, do you have any power? Do you have any voting rights? If you don't, your input means absolutely fuck all. Your input's like when you ask Richard to put up on Podbean. So you've had the input, he's now going to ban you and go fuck yourself. What you needed was some leverage where you could say, Richard, I need it on Podbean for this reason. So in that scenario, yeah, it's actually genius if you're ESL. In fact, by the way, even if you're some of the teams, you're fucking loving this. Oh yeah, we'll work with the CSPPA. Go ahead, ESL. Show how toothless they are that they can't do anything. You've just fucking cocked them all day long. Now, I get it. There's no other option if you're the players, so fair enough. Like, I think we've said enough on that topic, but people get the gist.
Well, we'll wrap it up with the questions now.
It's just a bad situation for everyone, basically.
Funny, I just saw a headline there that is actually sort of in line with this, Duncan, if you can see it there. This is a report over at Queerty, which is gay news. And apparently a gay adult film performer is blasting the studio because they pay bottoms less than tops. Lesson for us all, I guess.
Well, at the end of the day,
as it should be, in my opinion,
until those bottoms stop just taking it and, you know, stand up for themselves.
So there you go.
What do they expect?
You know, they just there's a lesson. There's a lesson there for us all. Anyway, let's do the questions.
Just like, so what are you saying? Put 2 and 2 together, mate. Put 2 and 2 together.
Out. You figure it out. You follow Queerty on Twitter like I do. Anyway. Sunmade Raisins asks, do you think the UK will ever have a decent CSGO team waiting upon Blackburn's finest?
Now, listen, I'll just say this right now.
Go on.
Do you consider Mousespots a German team? No German players in the lineup, okay? Do you consider Mousespots a German team? Yeah?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we have Fnatic. They've won 3 majors. There you go. Case closed.
No. So I suppose I do, because I've already said it, but
they're German org, right?
Yeah, they are a German org.
Fnatic
so yeah, right.
is registered as a UK company. Therefore,
no, you're right. They are a UK
Listen,
company.
what country are you from? Because unless you're from Denmark, 3 majors, you've got less. You get 3 majors, then talk shit to the UK. La na na.
Vindaloo. Classic.
That's a joke.
3 majors and 1.
The answer is no. I don't think we'll ever get you. But I don't. I also here's a statement you might like, because I always bag on Americans and say, "Why would I need Americans to be good? I'm not American." But you know what? I also don't particularly give a fuck if the UK has a good team. I've never been about that. I just want the best teams in general.
Yeah, fair.
Cool.
It's hard for me to give some more complete. I mean, you know, Smoothie will end up back in the UK at some point. So Who knows?
So let's make sure they don't have a good team.
No, I'm sure by then, maybe there'll be some other.
Maybe he can add a force major to our hall.
Yeah, to get in. So I'm down. Alice the Alchemist says, actually not a question. I just want to give a shout out to Mike and hope he's well and his family stays strong. Take care. Mike, one of our regulars in the chat, we talked about in the last episode, had a bereavement today. So sorry to hear about that,
All
mate.
right, fair enough.
Fucking January 2020's been wrecked. Remember how everyone had that optimism? Thank God 2019's over. We just launched into a fucking hellscape. It's already worse than anything that was going on. Just a fucking nightmare. So shout out to you. And then Reykjavik on Steam, my last question here. Who has more respect for journalistic ethics, Nell or the Washington Post? So, I was astounded, actually, because I know, like, you're obviously digging out Nell because, that was part of the windmill. Was that windmill day where you were just punching everybody? Yeah, it was. Yeah, I was punching everyone. I thought, I've got ESL, I've got Chris J, and I thought that fucking Nell can have it.
Here's the difference, though. Here's the difference. I don't expect anyone to come to my. In fact, one of the things I've always actually had as a strength as a person, I don't expect anyone to have to come to my back. You can hold whatever position you want. I'll just say this: a lot of people were thinking what I was saying.
No, but listen, I'll just say this straight. The way the French scene sort of rushed around into that like thread about it, saying, oh, no, but he doesn't need to give his name. I agree that journalists should be public-facing and should have their names for accountability issues, but it's different for us in the French scene because everyone knows who he is. I don't know who the fuck he is.
By the way, shall I tell you something amazing there? The lack of fucking self-awareness on you guys in the French scene is amazing. Do you want to know one of the reasons why a lot of us feel like he doesn't get held accountable? Because some of us hear the same things he hears, and then we don't report them because they're just opinions or they're just one person's side of the story. And then they magically come out as his opinions, as if he was an unofficial mouthpiece of certain elements of the French scene. So the idea, like I had literally a guy whose Twitter profile said formerly worked for Vitality, who then said, like, I don't know who you're referring to, but I don't think people should have to refer. Are you fucking kidding me? At that point in time, I just have to assume, unless I think you're an utter cretin, I just assume you're talking past me into the people listening. So I just ignore you at that point in time because that's the problem. That's the reason there's not accountability. If I shill for someone, I'll have to carry that to the end of my days. If you find it out and anyone gets that and nails that on me, then that'll be a black mark that comes up again and again and again. That's how you keep people accountable. There has to be a history of what they've done.
Yeah, and
again, I don't know who this person is. So the idea, like, well, this guy, sort of knows him. That's not enough, mate. The whole point of accountability is everyone has to know.
The reality is just this, like, right? How can people sit down, acknowledge that we've got a problem in journalism today, acknowledge that, they insert their personal opinions and abuse their platforms to, like, do hit pieces about people at the worst possible time and bring untold misery on families, very often when they're dead. I mean, like, Duncan, woe betide one of us that die soon, because our obituaries are already written, mate.
Guaranteed.
Already written. They're just waiting on them. They're hoping. We'll
have the equivalent of the credibly accused type shit.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. So that's how they operate. They've already written all the bad things down about you, and they can't wait to rush them out when you die. And they go, oh, but we're journalists. We must give it warts and all. There's still tact. There's still timing. There's still a need to be factually accurate. Which again, in the Corby instance, they ignored so many other factual parts of information about that particular case where he was accused, that it's mind-blowing to me that they treat him as if it was like some sort of like O.J. Simpson-esque, travesty of justice. Far from it. And I urge anybody to go look at the facts. But anyway, for me, the reality is we have started to keep track of these journalists and of these publications.
Yes.
We absolutely now, because he's using the name Nell, which is essentially a brand name, he can rebrand. He can change that name anytime he wants. And let's say he gets a string of stories wrong. Let's say like what happened with that Jake Lucky guy or whatever, because he's rebranded, remember, right? So back when he was called fucking eSport, CS News or whatever he was called, and he literally ran a story because he was angry at Mo that a fucking Tinder profile he found, which had a picture of Mo in it, was proof Mo was cheating on his wife. And he put that out there publicly without being able to check it at all. And of course, it was fake, and provably so. So he goes away and he rebrands. Now, should people who do shit like that not be held accountable? Of course they should. Everything he has done since is viewed through that lens, and as it should be. With Nell, he could do that story 5 times in a row, think, fucking hell, I've shot my fucking load here. No one fucking gonna click on anything I say again because I'm wrong. I'm gonna rebrand now. I'm Big John. And he comes back and we go, oh, who's this Big John guy? He had a big leak. You don't know the 5 stories that he got wrong before it. So you judge him now as if he's got a clean slate and you give him the benefit of the doubt. It's ridiculous. Journalists can ruin lives as well. There's a reason why it has to be an accountable position. It's deemed to be a very important job in almost all societies I've been engaged with. As a journalist, you can sign people's passport photographs in Britain and say, I vouch that this person is who they say they are. It's only like doctors and teachers get to do that. So the idea that you can do it all with a fake fucking name and no photo and nobody knows who the fuck you are, of course that's an accountability issue. I'm not even saying Nell's telling lies or getting stories wrong or needs to be held accountable. But the reality, and many times we've highlighted his work on the show as being good. But yeah, he needs to put his name in the bio for me or I can't take him fully seriously.
I would just go this way. Here's the obvious way I'd go, Richard. If it's no big deal, if everyone knows you, then go ahead and do it. Yeah. What reason would you have not to? Go on then.
Yeah.
Notice he didn't give
and
one.
They all said the same thing. They all said the same thing. That question came up multiple times in the Reddit thread about it, and they all said, "Well, why should he get stalked and harassed in his life? Your job is writing about other people's personal lives."
Yep.
So do they not have a right to not be bothered by the stuff you publish? Secrets they don't want public. Oh, no, you go, it's in the public interest. Then it is inarguably in the public interest that you are publicly accountable. And
you're a
public
figure if you're a journalist.
Yes, absolutely. It's an absurd premise.
And anyway, by the way, everyone who becomes a journalist knows and accepts that when they do it.
Yeah. Can you even fucking imagine? Can you even imagine me trying to go, well, listen, guys, you can't dig into my shit? Can you imagine DK saying that? DK just recorded a video of him showing, because he's on God tier mode now, he's going to win Journalist of the Year.
He's going well, isn't he?
He's already broke like so many stories, and now he's doing content that's absolutely fucking sick as well, up on his YouTube channel. Like he did a week in the life of a journalist, and he's filming him working on the stories from The Office, and it's all sick editing, and all the tweets, and how he puts it all together, and what his workflow looks like and stuff. That's never been done. So, can you imagine if he was like, listen, I just want to be called fucking DK. No one can know my name. Here's all these leaks. No, fucking no, you're a public figure.
The only thing is, though, I will say, he's probably not the best example because he does sound like an alt of yours, like Jarek Lewis. Like, he just sounds like the cyberpunk version of you, doesn't he?
Yeah, the only time I've ever written with a pen name where people didn't know who I was when Crazy Kim Rom, your mate, fucking G'd up out of his fucking mind, decided the only way he would let me audition to go work at On Gamers was if I submitted work under an alias. And I said to him, this is hugely unethical, and I don't agree with it. But I'll give you the work, and
I don't imagine that stopped him.
and I'll give you a name that is so outrageous that people will know it to me immediately anyway. So that's where Joe Interzone Edwards comes from. Joe Interzone Edwards was a creation because obviously Interzone is William Burroughs. Everyone knows I'm fucking into him. And Joe Edwards was a name that used to come up all the time back when we used to run Cadred. The Joe Edwards account was like me and fucking my sub-editor, and we would put all these insane stories out, and then we just put at the bottom like Joe Edwards is a fictional abstraction of like Michael McGee and Richard Lewis. So even when I've done pen names, everyone knows who the fuck it was. You know who I am. But it is unethical. It shouldn't be done as the norm by any stretch. Go look at that awful Rolling Stone story where they accused everybody, falsely accused those people of a sex crime. And it was written by a journalist who wanted to put it out, and they did put it out with a fucking pen name. It's like, fucking hell. You've just ruined everyone's lives and you get a moonwalk out if it stays like that. That's not acceptable. Anyway, hope that answers the question. Right, let's wrap it up. So shout out to our patrons who will be getting audio feeds now. Our $100 patrons: Jerky's Mini and Alice the Alchemist, Alisha Usmanov, Rekovic. I'm never letting it go, Duncan. You can laugh.
I'm just laughing at the fact that you've just given them a gift that everyone was getting for free until
fuck
2 hours ago.
Mate,
fair enough, but
you fucking, they will learn, right? Like that, they will learn that enough's enough. You have to, just a general word of advice. I'll wrap up the show. It's not your fault that you're a moron, but you can get away with being a moron by just learning this one simple trick to speak in terms that you probably understand from reading clickbait on the internet. The one simple trick is this: before you say something, ask yourself a question. Is this such an obvious and likely repetitive question that it's been asked before? Because you don't get judged on you being stupid. It's the other 99 dafties before you that have fucking put me over the edge. You're just the cunt who stands there and gets the fucking hairdryer, right? And if you can't do that, you've got no business interacting with me at all. At all. If you cannot have that level of self-awareness, I don't want to know you. I don't care how nice you are. I don't care how much you give to charity. I cannot stand people like you who lack that level of self-awareness. Don't talk to me. Don't follow my work. Never give me a penny. If this applies to you, go and unsub immediately. I do not care about you on any level until you can get.
And I've been run over by a car. Do not administer first aid to me or resuscitate me.
Like, if you cannot get to a level of self-awareness where before you ask the question, you think, if somebody else asked this, fuck off, stay out of my life, man. Just stay gone. No, it has to be said. It has to be said, mate. I do not want to interact with people like you.
We're back to DEFCON 1 already.
No.
We're fully back.
And they do it all the time. Even in threads, somebody's asked the question above them and they go, well, if I type it out with slightly different wording, no, you're not getting the answer either. Fools, this is ridiculous. Get the fuck out of my YouTube channel. Leave me alone. I can't take... And then people go, well, why don't you just answer the question? I've answered it 1,000 times from 1,000 other morons. Don't you understand? All you would need to do is just a cursory search. It has to be on you. It has to be. It can't be on me. Anyway, so yeah, shout out to our patrons who are now getting audio, and no one else ever will, ever. All gone. Download the Podbeans, download the iTunes. I'm deleting them 100%. I'm not even joking about it.
I'm done, but it's so much effort.
Yeah. Right, and our $50 patrons: Benakagi Assassin, Butt Pounder 420, Carve, Flacksmith, J Dubs, Lipscomb Davis, Madsen, Marcus Kiumpar, Mike Feedme, Nemesis, Nikolai Lundgren, Sadsawar, Sunmade Raisins, TC Owens, Tobias Bernasconi, and Watch Doge. And let's end with an announcement, because on Friday we'll be doing a special episode of By the Numbers, a very special one. So special, Duncan won't be there, because ESL are going to send 2 representatives. At the moment, it looks like the Flying DJ and Carmack, and they're going to come on, and I'm going to interview them and grill them about all of this league stuff, and let's hopefully get to the bottom of it. So I will see you at Friday, 12 p.m. PST, right? Sponsoring everything we do. Love them, support them. Am I really going to have to do the throw again?
I think it's it. He sounded laggy to me a second.
Getting DDoSed because
there we go, he's back.
He's taking away our audio. DDoS him. Get his IP.
Throw yourselves before the bulldozers, guys. We must have the Podbean. I can't live without the Podbean.
So anyway, ESL are coming on 12 p.m. PST, right? And yeah, and this show is brought to you by .com, our incredible sponsors who sponsor all the Straight Fire content we do. We hope you'll go over .com/RLS and show that you appreciate us and appreciate them for sponsoring us. And it's all a big circle jerk of appreciation. We all appreciate everything except people that ask stupid questions. So there you have it. Right, wrapping the show up. Shout out to Duncan. He gets Friday off. Thanks to everybody who dropped by the stream, except the idiots. And we'll see you on Friday. Until then, take care of yourselves. Peace.